Welcome to Identifying Luck for Mario Party 4. It is here we will learn how to best improve our odds of winning at the only Mario Party game that lets you create a custom minigame pack for party mode. Honestly, one of the coolest features that never returns. Let's open up this party box and take care of the bonus stars. We've got the coin star, happening star, and minigame star, you get the gist. Appreciate how simple bonus stars are in these earlier titles, because once we get to 6 and 7, things get a little sad and hectic. This third one awards the player that collected the most amount of coins from standard minigames only. This includes lucky minigames, which are just like the standard minigames, except players have a chance of winning ×2 or ×3 the normal amount of coins. Turning off bonus stars will also turn off hidden blocks. It's a wonder why these two options were never separated. Our spaces for this title are Blue, Red, Happening, Bowser, Fortune, Mushroom, Warp, and Battle. There are no dual spaces in this title. I have no clue why. During the final 5 turns, blue spaces and red spaces may have their coin values doubled from 3 to 6. It depends on what the roulette lands on. A hidden block can appear after landing on a blue space. In this title, there will only be one hidden block on the board at a time. It will contain either a star or 20 coins, determined at random. If your lucky self manages to land in a blue space with a hidden block, then you'll receive your reward and it'll move to a different space. If you've seen a lot of blue spaces get landed on without any hidden blocks popping up, then recall the spots that haven't been landed on yet and consider stomping on them if you can. This maneuver is just another option though, and shouldn't be something you center your game around, especially because there's only one hidden block on a board for this title. Choosing which path you're going to take on a board is a big deal that'll affect many future turns of your game, so don't instantly take a path just because there's a blue space that hasn't been landed on yet. You want to take in all your options. Bowser spaces will often cause a Koopa kid to appear, who will steal 10 to 30 coins in increments of 5 from either the player who landed on the space or, less commonly, all 4 players. More rarely, Bowser himself will appear, but instead of letting you roll a roulette, he'll decide what he wants himself. Bowser Game. This new event is the most common and involves 4 players playing one of 3 Bowser minigames: Balloon of Doom, Darts of Doom, and Fruits of Doom, which we'll cover later. Regardless of which minigame is selected, it will always end with one loser who will be forced to give up all their items, half their coins, all their coins, or 1 star. Bowser Revolution. Bowser will take everyone's coins and divide them equally. It's the most infamous Bowser event for a reason, because those who are rich will fall and those who are poor will rise. Bowser Shuffle. Bowser will switch everyone's spots with one another. There's no telling where you'll end up. Bowser Suit. Bowser will give a Bowser suit to the player who landed on the space. This event is now the only way to obtain a Bowser suit, and occurs much more rarely than before, being rarer than the other events by a significant margin. It's a shame that you can't decide what the Bowser event is like in Mario Party 3, where the roulette was something you could time, but hey, you can't have everything. Oh, hey, you know what time it is? Chance time! It's technically called Reversal of Fortune in this game, but let's stick with chance time, alright? It's a classic. Instead of your usual dice blocks to swap coins and or stars between players, we've got pinball. Pinball. I spent hours upon hours on this stupid pinball machine, searching for consistent shots one could take to get the hole they won. And what did I discover? But a horrifying truth that can't be avoided. The shots you take have a degree of randomness to them. What does that mean? Well, I tested multiple frame 1 shots across different chance time encounters and found that despite shooting with the exact same strength every time, that the ball differed wildly in its trajectory. Here are 3 examples of the same shot being taken but with different outcomes beyond the player's control. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? This chance time is ruined. There's no way to tell how much extra power they're adding onto your shots, which means any advice I give for one chance time encounter will get negated by the next. But Zoomzyke, what if there are certain shots that will get you similar results despite this randomness we can't account for? You think there would be, right? But no, the random power boost that's applied to the ball is too significant. You already saw the difference in trajectory at minimum power, and there ain't much difference when you start going up. Sure, you can control the general amount of power the ball's launched at, but the game takes the reins right afterwards and screws everything up. Okay, Zoomzyke, I'm sorry, but what if the power boost of the ball is consistent across all 3 tables? That way, you could tell how much power is being added to the ball on the first table and then account for it on every table past that. Good thinking, but I'm afraid to say that the random power boost is just as random in the future tables, if not more random. Wait, Zoomzyke, more random? You heard me, more random! Listen up! For the first table, the game's already randomly decide how much extra power it's going to give your ball. It's predetermined. But for the second and third tables, the game decides how much extra power to give your ball the moment you make your shot, much like hitting a dice block. Not to mention that the second and third tables each have Koopa Kids, which move by taking a full step or a half step, but their patterns aren't consistent. Sure, you can tell when one is about to take a half step if you look close enough, but the fact that your ball's trajectory is going to get altered in a random way makes it so you can't take advantage of anything that is predictable. But Zoomzyke, this chance time has ruined my life. There are no consistent holes for you to get except for one. The leftmost hole on the third table, coin swap. It seems like no matter what random amount of power the game adds onto your ball, you can consistently get coin swap by fully charging up and launching when the left Koopa Kid isn't blocking the path. Why is this one consistent when others aren't? Because this floating separator on the left prevents the ball from straying off course, forcing it to remain left. By the way, this third table's possible results are in the same position every time, so coin swap will always be on the left. Even launching the ball at mid-strength will cause it to land in coin swap more often than not, so long as the left Koopa Kid doesn't get in the way. If you want to avoid coin swap, then launch the ball at minimum power by button mashing A and pulling back. This way, you'll hit a Koopa Kid for sure, which will send your ball into a frenzy all over the table, hopefully landing in something you want. What this all means is that coin swap is the most consistent hole you can land on for this chance time, which you can take advantage of, I guess. For example, let's say you're low on coins and entered this chance time. If you luckily got yourself and someone wealthier, then you can easily swap coins with them. On the other hand, if you have way more coins than the other player and they're the one giving away, then do a minimum power shot and hope you get something other than coin swap. But what if you have more stars and coins than the person you're gonna swap with? If you avoid coin swap, then you may accidentally swap stars or give away your stars, which will lose you big time. In this scenario, you may want to suck it up and swap coins instead to avoid a tragedy from occurring. I can't tell you how much of an emotional roller coaster this chance time was. At first, I was ecstatic. A pinball chance time sounds great, must be pretty consistent. Little did I know, the devs thought far enough ahead to negate what could have been an easy to manipulate chance time. The only other piece of advice I can give is that for the first table, it looks like the ball will land in the leftmost hole if you launch it at max power more often than not, but again, it's not consistent. Try not to rely on this chance time unless you're keen to swap a lot of coins around. I now hate pinball. If a player lands on a mushroom space, they will either get a mini mushroom or a mega mushroom. Each mushroom is hidden inside one of 2 boxes, one large and one small, that the player must choose between. Oh, so the small box contains the mini mushroom, whereas the large one contains the mega mushroom, right, Zoomzyke? No, it's Random! Then Zoomzyke, what's the point of the boxes being different sizes? I don't know! To screw with us? I don't understand! Either way, these spaces can be commonly found no matter which board you select, so there's no avoiding them. If you already have 3 items when landing on the space, nothing will happen. If a player lands in a warp space, an arrow spins on a roulette showing the other 3 characters' heads. The player must stop the roulette. Whichever character the arrow stops on is the chosen character that the player will be launched to. Remember how stuff like this was determined at random? How far we've come. This is actually something pretty cool. This roulette will often show up for different events, but the way to get what you want remains the same. When you press the A button, the pointer will slide an additional 225 degrees clockwise. This means that to get the pointer to land on the character you want, you must press the A button when it's hovering over the character that's 1 space ahead of your target. So if I wanted to land on a character on the top right, then I'd press A the instant the arrow is over the character on the bottom, and so on. It can be easier said than done since the pointer does move quickly, but if you keep your calm, take your time, and watch closely, then you can get it, I assure you. If an entire minute passes before you press A, then the game will do it for you. I highly doubt you'll need that long though, so don't worry about it much. If a player lands on the battle space, a Bob-omb appears, gets a certain amount of coins from each player, and a battle minigame begins. The amount of coins he'll take from each player is determined via roulette. The possible results are 5, 10, 20, 30, and 50. The low values are more common during the earlier turns, whereas the high values are more common during the later turns. Whoever lands on the battle space gets to choose between 2 options which battle minigame will be played. If you're the one choosing, then always go for Paths of Peril once you learn my trick for it later in the video. If it's not an option, then select Rumble Fishing if you're confident that your reaction time is better than your opponent's. If you're not, then select the skill-based minigame that you're the best at, Trace Race, Chain Chomp Fever, or Butterfly Blitz. If you think you suck at all 3 and Bowser's Bigger Blast, the luck-based one, is an option, then you may as well go for it. You should really keep in mind the current threats though. If you know the biggest threat sucks at Chain Chomp Fever, but so do you, then it may be worth biting the bullet to bring him down there instead of chance them winning it all in Bowser's Bigger Blast. The fact that the player who lands on the battle space gets to choose which battle minigame is played makes it much more viable for you to aim for it since you can choose the one that you're best at, so keep that in mind. This title has 14 items for players to obtain. These are all purchasable at the shop, with this one only obtainable via the Bowser Suit event. A player can hold up to 3 items in this title. Just lovely. What the shop has in stock when you visit is pretty much random. It's no longer dependent on what turn the game is on or your current placing. This adds chance to the shop, making it a little unreliable for big plays like before. So if you see something you want, then feel a little more pressure to get it now, since it may not even show up later. There will always be 5 items to choose from, and since there's 4 mushrooms in the item pool, you'll almost always see at least 1 mushroom present, which is a bit of an understatement since you'll often see 2 to 3 appear, just begging for you to buy them. The Mega Mushroom causes players to be giant and also them to roll 2 dice blocks, for a total of 2 to 20 spaces. If the player rolls matching numbers, they get 10 coins. 30 coins if they roll 2 7s. When players pass anyone, they steal 10 coins from the player they crush. This may sound like a better mushroom, and in some cases it is, but its major drawback is that it bypasses every board event. Star spaces, item shops, boo houses, lottery shops, and any event unique to a board will be skipped over while you're mega. This creates a strange but admittedly cool dynamic, where if you use the Mega Mushroom to get closer to the star, you run the risk of skipping it entirely. If it's completely out of your range, as in over 20 spaces, then you can rest assured that you won't skip it even if you hit the max amount of 20. But if you're only 10 or so spaces away, then using the Mega Mushroom will almost certainly break your heart. take into account other board events when you're using a Mega Mushroom as well. You never know when you might need to trigger a certain event to get ahead in the game. The board event that the Mega Mushroom won't skip is Bowser on the Bowser's Gnarly Party board, where players that make it to him will do a Bowser Mega minigame when they pass him, due to being in their Mega form. The Mini Mushroom causes players to be tiny. It also restricts the dice block. Instead of rolling 1 to 10, it only rolls 1 to 5. That restriction can prove to be very beneficial if there's a certain space you want to land on that's right next to you. Try boosting your happening space count or target other spaces that can do some good for you. For example, if I was far behind in coins, then I'd use a Mini Mushroom next to a battle space for a chance to take some money from other players. The Mini Mushroom can cause players to play mini games as well, which are useful board events unique to each board. They're often worth using a Mini Mushroom for. Lastly, Mini Mushrooms will also allow you to go through gates, which are special paths that often have chance time spaces and other noteworthy events to check out. Mega Mushrooms and Mini Mushrooms will be in your inventory whether you like it or not. Seriously, there are so many mushroom spaces on every board that you won't be able to avoid carrying these fungi. They may only be 5 coins at a shop, but there will rarely be a situation where you'll need to purchase one since they practically throw themselves at you. A Super Mega Mushroom has generally the same effects as a Mega Mushroom, except that players roll 3 dice blocks instead of 2 for a total of 3 to 30 spaces. If the player rolls matching even numbers, then they'll get 10 coins. If they roll matching odd numbers, then they'll get 30 coins, the exception being 7, where they'll get 50 coins instead. However, if you roll 3 sixes, then you will lose 30 coins. I'm just kidding about that one. Other than that, the advantages and disadvantages of being Mega still apply. The main issue here is that you're most definitely going to skip over some board events if you get a decent roll on your 3 dice blocks. Make peace with that and consider how this item can help you out. All 3 players in the line in front of you, squish them all to steal 30 coins. Need to travel a great distance? Go ahead and hope for the best. A Super Mini Mushroom has generally the same effects as a Mini Mushroom, except that players roll 2 1 to 5 dice blocks instead of 1, for a total of 2 to 10 spaces. The player gets 10 coins if they roll matching numbers. This super version of the Mini Mushroom doesn't have the same advantage of being able to roll low to land on certain spaces, but that's not what it's really intended to help with anyways. By basically rolling a regular dice block while mini, you have a better chance of making it to gates or mini games without coming up short. You probably won't find yourself purchasing the Super Mega Mushroom often since it's 15 coins. In order to make that coinage back, you'd have to smush at least 2 players for a profit of only 5 coins. But in this case, you would be taking away 20 coins from other players, so it may be worth it. I try and stick with the Mega Mushrooms that are already clogging up my inventory though. When it comes to the Super Mini Mushroom, I'd purchase it if I was looking to go through a gate. Too often do my rolls come up short with the regular Mini Mushroom, so I like to avoid wasting a turn if I can. When a character uses a warp pipe, a roulette that has the heads of the other characters appears. An arrow spins and the player can stop the arrow. When the arrow stops on a character's head, the player swaps places with that character. Sounds familiar? Unlike the warp block from previous Mario parties, the warp pipe gives you a chance to influence which character you'll switch places with. If you follow what I said earlier about timing the pointer and are good at it, then you can wreak havoc on your competition by switching your bad position with your opponent's good ones. I'd say a warp pipe in the right hands is a terrifying item in this title. Get used to that roulette and the people you play with will groan whenever it comes up for you. When a player uses the swap card, that same roulette appears. When the arrow stops on a character's head, the player swaps items with the chosen player. Zoom's like, this sounds like the barter box special item from Mario Party 3. You are right. They made the worst of the 4 special items in Mario Party 3 a regular item in this game, and no, it's not overpowered at all. To be frank with you, switching all your items with an opponent is a very situational play. For starters, there has to be an opponent with better items than you in the first place. If that's not the case, then why bother? Well, I guess if the only item you have is the swap card, then you leave them with nothing. That could work. I just don't find myself looking to use this item too often. When a player uses a MiniMega Hammer, they may choose another player to be Mega or Mini by hitting them on the head with the hammer. Bonk. But they can't do this to themselves. Then, the opponent that player chooses is given the effects of a Mega Mushroom or a Mini Mushroom on the next turn, determined by what mushroom appears on the hammer when the alternating between the two mushrooms is stopped by pressing the A button. It'll choose for you if you take about 10 seconds to press A. Unlike the roulette, this comes down to basic timing. Whatever mushroom is showing when you press A is the one you're gonna inflict on the character you chose. If you notice a threat's coming up to a star, then try to inflict the Mega Mushroom on them so they'll skip it. What's great is even if you mistime your button press and get a Mini Mushroom instead, your opponent will likely still get screwed over due to a low die roll. You could also screw an opponent out of going into a gate by making them Mega, or visiting an item shop by making them Mega. You get the point. Making someone Mega when they don't want to be Mega will cause them to skip the stuff that they want. On the other hand, making them Mini will slow them down. But you can also increase the odds that they land on a space that's bad for them or good for you, such as a battle space if they have tons of coins. The possibilities of this item are endless, which is why at 10 coins, it's a pretty decent grab. When a player uses the Chomp Call, 4 small chain chomps appear, surround the host that holds the star in the star space, and scares them away to another space. Afterwards, the location of the star space changes. This item is a replacement of the Lucky Lamp from Mario Party 3. Use it when a threat's about to nab the star. Keep those words in mind. About to. Don't use it early when your opponents are far away from the star. Then you leave them an opportunity to correct their course and go straight for it again. You want to use it when they're close enough to feel its raw power. You'll waste their turns that way. In Mario Party 3, there are situations where you may use the Lucky Lamp when an opponent's far away from the star because they have a mushroom or golden mushroom to travel long distances, but in this title, the mushroom and golden mushroom equivalents will skip past the star, making this item more likely to waste your opponent's time. When a player uses the Boo's Crystal Ball, a Boo appears. The player can then decide if they'd like to steal coins or a star from another player. If the player chooses to steal coins, they must pay a 5 coin fee. I mean, he's gotta make a living somehow. The victim can fight back and lose less coins by repeatedly pressing the A button. If the player chooses to steal a star, they must pay a 50 coin fee. The victim cannot fight back. However, if the victim has a Gaddlight, the victim can flash the light at Boo and chase him away when he's after their coins or stars. The amount of coins Boo will steal still depends on the turn number. I really thought something obscure like this would change from the N64 titles to this GameCube one, but nope, stealing during the first 5 turns won't net you nearly as much as during the mid-game or final 5 turns. This crystal ball costs 25 coins, which is a hefty price considering that you'd need to pay an additional 5 coins to steal coins from another player. At the end of it all, you wouldn't make any profit. You'd only be spending money to make another player lose money. Unless you need to do that or steal a star, then I don't recommend making this purchase. Boo's accessible on every board anyways, although he can be hard to get to on a few which require you to go through a gate. Either way, lay off on the crystal ball unless you desperately need to take a star or for someone else to lose coins. Now obviously, if you can get the crystal ball for free, then it's a pretty good deal. The Gaddlight will prevent Boo from stealing their coins or stars. If you have a star or are about to get one, then this item is a must-have. One player stealing a star from another has been a big Mario Party move for as long as time itself, and you don't want to be on the giving end of that exchange. This item guarantees your safety, especially on a board where Boo can only be reached by going through a gate. Not many players will go through the hassle of reaching him just to get rid of your Gaddlight. At least in previous Mario parties, Boo was in a more convenient spot for players to use him, but if you have a Gaddlight here, then it'll be a pain for players to get rid of it. This, of course, works the other way around. If a player gets a Gaddlight, then getting rid of it will be a pain, if your only method is to do so through Boo. If you get a swap card and time the roulette to nail the target player, then not only will they lose their Gaddlight, but you'll gain it. If a player plans on doing this to you, then you can actually use the Gaddlight to get rid of it. This is kind of a salty move, but it's an optimal one if you don't want them taking it away from you. Just make sure that they're actually planning on taking it away from you though, because you might find yourself in a situation where you'll assume that they're going to get rid of it, but they might be targeting another player. That's where the mind games come in. When a player uses a Sparky Sticker, they place it directly below where they're standing. If any player tries to pass it, the player loses 10 coins plus the effects of a Mega Mushroom or a Mini Mushroom. Whereas the MiniMega Hammer forces a player to go Mega or Mini, the Sparky Sticker does the opposite by forcibly taking either effect away. The main restraint with this item is that it can only be placed below where you're standing. This restricts its potential for screwing another player over, but there are situations where it can be useful. If you place one next to a gate, then you can prevent a player from going mini and taking that special path. If a player behind you has a Mega Mushroom, then placing a Sparky Sticker down will prevent your opponent from stealing your coins. This item costs 15 coins though, so it's not something I'd go out of my way to purchase unless I can't let an opponent use a certain gate. The effects of an item bag activate as soon as players purchase the item. They receive 3 random items. If they already have 1 or 2 items, the remaining items found in the bag get discarded. You'll rarely get 3 items out of this since your inventory will almost always have at least 1 mushroom taking up a spot. And I'm not about to tell you to pay 30 coins for 2 random items. You're better off choosing an item you want at the shop instead. At least in Mario Party 3 you had a chance at getting a special item or ones that weren't just mushrooms, but here you have a high chance of getting mushrooms on top of the mushroom spaces, and I just hate all the mushrooms in this tile. Don't buy the item bag unless you're absolutely desperate for a certain item, or, you have no items in your inventory. When a player uses a magic lamp, they summon the Genie of the Lamp. The Genie then transports them to the star space, and oh boy, that's a big boy. I don't know what happened to him from Mario Party 3 to Mario Party 4, but he needs to get back on his workout routine. Players still have to trade 20 coins for the star, by the way. They really nerfed the magic lamp since the last entry. It used to be priced at 20 coins, but now it's 30 coins. Ugh, imagine paying 30 coins for a magic lamp and then another 20 coins for the star. You wouldn't catch me using this item unless I stole it from someone using a swap card or was desperate for the star. No way. Players can only acquire the Bowser suit from Bowser when they land on a Bowser space. If they use this, they go into Bowser suit. If they pass anyone else, they'll steal 30 coins. Like the Mega Mushroom, the Bowser suit will bypass all board events, except if they meet Bowser on the Bowser's Gnarly party board, where he'll give the player 50 coins. If you could purchase this item from a shop, I'd be telling you to get it, even if it costed 20, maybe even 30 coins. It's that good. If you're behind 2 players, then you could steal 60 coins. Make that 90 if you manage to get all 3. This title has a board feature called the Lottery Shop, where players can pay 5 coins to play lottery games to win prizes. Upon first entering the shop prior to the final 5 turns event, players are given a lucky party ticket, where a lottery drawing will occur at the final 5 turns for players to earn a free star if they have a lucky ticket. The host spins a wheel showing all 4 players' faces. If a player's ticket matches all 3 faces shown from the wheel in order from left to right, they'll receive a star. The chances of having a winning ticket is 1 in 64. We multiply the 1 in 4 chance that the roulette landed on your first character times the 1 in 4 chance that the roulette landed on your second character times the 1 in 4 chance that the roulette landed on your third character. Improbable, sure, but not impossible. I've seen it happen. The 2 lottery games are operating a machine to roll out a ball and scratching a card. Prizes range from a free item, 30 coins, and the jackpot of 100 coins. The ball game is simple enough. Just rotate your analog stick to see what you get. The Mario Party Legacy channel did a rare oddities video for the lottery in this game. The guy did 100 tests for the ball game and got 22 item balls, 11 30 coin balls, and 2 100 coin balls. He then roughly estimated that you have a 34% chance of getting anything. You're seeing a high chance of nothing gained from the ball minigame, but hey, you might get something. How about scratching a card? The same guy noted that one card will give an item, one will give 30 coins, and one is the jackpot that'll give 100 coins. This lands us at a 25% chance of getting something. However, this guy brought to attention that there's a much higher chance of getting the jackpot when scratching a card instead of rolling out a ball. Regardless, they're both luck-based, no manipulation here. After the final 5 turns gets done revealing the winning ticket, the host lets the player in last place spin a special roulette. Then for the rest of the game, the board has one of these 4 new rules applied. However, only 3 of those rules will appear in the roulette, with the coin multiplier always being one of those rules. Coin multiplier. All blue and red spaces coin values are doubled from 3 to 6. All red spaces become Bowser spaces, all red spaces become fortune spaces, and star present. The price of stars changes from 20 coins to being absolutely free. The lamest event is, of course, the first one, where coin values are simply doubled. Anything else will make things interesting. If all red spaces become Bowser spaces, then you need to avoid them as much as possible or Koopa Kid will likely take your coins. You could purposely land on one to try and trigger one of Bowser's events though. The revolution could help you out if you're behind in coins, the shuffle could screw other players out of good positions, the suit could be deadly in your hands, or the Bowser game may cause your opponents to lose something. It ain't likely that everything will go exactly as you planned by landing on a Bowser space though, cause again, you can't choose what he gives you, and it's not even guaranteed that Bowser will show up in the first place, so don't count on it and try to avoid them if you can. If red spaces become chance time spaces, then you've just entered the Chaos Canyon. Normally, the chance time spaces in this title are found behind paths that gates are guarding, so they're less likely to get landed upon. But with this event, the chances of chance time are pretty high. And I would say if you've mastered the chance time event, then this is your chance to secure the win. I had a cute little pun laid out, but no, this chance time is definitely based on chance. If the price of stars changes from 20 coins to nothing, then magic lamps are a much more worthwhile purchase. You pay 30 coins for a free star. Sounds like a great deal to me. This event makes it so players who are low on funds are able to get stars as well though. So look out for threats no matter how low their coin counts are, and ensure that they won't be able to take advantage. It's crazy down here at Toad's Midway Madness. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the least amount of blue spaces at 39, the least amount of Bowser spaces at 2, and the most amount of mushroom spaces at 18. Let's remind ourselves again how the star space works, cause thankfully it hasn't changed at all throughout these past 4 titles. On most boards, when you buy a star, the star space itself will move to another random location. However, only certain spaces have been programmed to host a star. We refer to these spaces as star spaces, and normally only one is active at a time. When a star space isn't active, it'll look like your average blue space. Let's say you're smack dab in the middle of a game. You remember that these 6 star spaces have been deactivated, and you notice that the current active star space is this one. With that being the scenario, I ask you, where will the next star pop up? Right here, since all the other spots are either deactivated or will deactivate after its star has been purchased. Before we talk about strategy of any kind for this board, we need to cover a, frankly, horrendous game design decision that the devs made for its starting area. This teacup. They're the main way of getting around. Every time a player goes on one, they're taken to the direction that the arrow was pointing, and then, get this, the direction changes. With that in mind, take a close look at this section. Going left will set you on the main route, whereas going up will loop you back around. Okay, cool, but here's the problem. One player will get utterly screwed over for many turns in a row. Here's what an average start looks like. The arrow starts out facing left, so the first one to reach it will exit left. This forces the second player to take the loop, and since that player just went up, the arrow's facing left again. Just like before, the player that gets there quickest will leave this limbo, again forcing a player to take the loop. There are now 2 players stuck in this starting area. Whichever of the 2 reaches the arrow pointing left first will get to exit, leaving the last player to do yet another loop around in order to exit. Keep in mind that this loop is 14 spaces long, so if you get caught in this joke of a starting section, then you're gonna end up stuck for multiple turns through no fault of your own. It's terrible. If there were any happening spaces in this loop, then at least it'd be helpful somehow, but nope, just a bunch of mushroom spaces. If you land on one and get a mega mushroom, then use it if the arrow is pointing to the left, so you're not the one that gets left behind. If you got a mini mushroom instead and the arrow's pointing up, then use it so your opponent will get there first and turn the arrow left for you. These plays here just aren't fun to me, since the fight the two players have to go through is forced because of this poor board design. What's more frustrating to me is that the devs put in countermeasures to this game design decision instead of just fixing it from the get-go. Look, there's a warp space here that can help you escape the limbo, and there's a happening space next to the left exit that when landed upon will change the direction of its respective teacup. This means that if someone exits left and lands on this happening space, then they'll let the player behind them exit left as well, which is good, but unless every player lands on this happening space, someone will be left behind. It's maddening that this section exists. I hope for your sake that you're not the one that gets stuck here. Players are allowed to go across the coaster tracks, but stepping on the happening spaces on the tracks causes the rocket cart to chase them down to the left or right sides of the board, depending on where the cart is at the time. If it's on the left side of the board, then it'll chase it all the way to this space. If it's on the right side of the board, then you'll end up on this space. Players can also ride the roller coaster for 5 coins to the other side. Riding the roller coaster gives the player a chance to get some coins on the way and chase down other players on the tracks. The coaster will always start out on the left side of the board. You'll only have the option to ride the coaster, however, if you're on the same side as it and are not Mega or Mini. These tracks take up a good chunk of spaces on this board, so you need to be aware of your surroundings. Where's the coaster stationed? Can any player ride the coaster on purpose to move me? If so, then which space would I end up on? Knowing the answers to these questions will help keep you safe. But riding the coaster isn't the only way to screw over a player on the tracks. You could use a mini mushroom to increase the chances that you'll land in a happening space on the tracks, and if your luck wins out, then you and your target will be moved to the same space. This should be done if a threat's coming up on a star, since the event will force them to skip it. If you're about to be given the option to ride the coaster, indicated by Toad standing on the platform, then check the map before you roll to determine whether or not you wish to ride. We do all of this in advance because you aren't given the option to check the map when you reach Toad for some reason, so you want to be prepared. When riding on the coaster, there are 18 coins for you to collect. Some will appear on the left side, some on the right. You've got to tilt your coaster to get them, so make sure you're always leaning towards the coins. You may find all this stuff regarding the tracks to be a bit overkill, but you'll find yourself looking to make moves like these more often than you think, since 4 out of the 8 star spaces are on the tracks. This top teacup will always start out with its arrow pointing up, which will often be the better path of the two. They both can lead you to star spaces, but the one going right will loop you back around and potentially set you up to get moved by your opponents via the coaster, which could go good for you in certain scenarios, but either way, you're gonna miss out on an item shop, and more importantly, boo. If the arrow's pointing right and you want to go up, then use a mini mushroom to slow yourself down so a player changes the arrow for you, or try and squeeze through the gate, which hosts a chance time space, mushroom space, and the Space Rocket game. This is our first example of a mini minigame, which can only be accessed if you're mini when you approach it. This one's placement is quite mean, since it's multiple spaces after the gate, and since a mini mushroom only rolls 1 to 5, it's unlikely you'll both get through the gate and reach this mini minigame. If you're short, then simply use another mini mushroom if you've got one. If not, then you're out of luck. This minigame is a coin one in particular. The player must pick one of 3 rocket ships, which takes them to one of the coin amounts at the top. The player gets the amount of coins that they land on. Whenever a rocket reaches a horizontal line, it'll take it to the other side. Knowing this, simply follow the 20 coin line down and move sideways whenever you see a horizontal line. Soon enough, you'll see the correct rocket to pick. You'll have 5 seconds to do this, which is definitely enough time. Even if you're wrong, the worst thing that can happen is you getting 5 coins, which ain't bad at all. The item minigame on this board board, the merry-go game, involves a merry-go-round, as you can expect. Players have to stop their horse that they're riding on, then wait for the pictures of the 4 items to stop. The player wins the item whose picture is facing them. No tricks here, simply press the A button when your horse lines up with the item you want. If you see a magic lamp or a Gaddlight, then go for either one. That's a steal! I'd take the Gaddlight if I was confident in my lead and wanted to defend myself. If I need to catch up or the other players won't reach Boo in time, then I'd take the magic lamp instead. The right gate on this board is alright. Hey, this kind of sounds like the skeleton gates from the previous Mario Parties, huh? I guess it is nice to see alternate routes like theirs return in this title. You know, it's kind of like a spiritual successor in a way. Anyways, this gate looks like garbage at first glance because of the 2 red spaces, but take another look and you'll see that it can save you tons of spaces, especially if you're about to suffer from that horrendous loop around in the starting area. I take this gate if the star is or is about to show up on the left side of the board. I'd also take it if I needed to get to Boo quicker. If you're starving for an item or have a mini mushroom, then either take the coaster from left to right or get chased by it from left to right. Either way, you'll end up 1 space behind the item minigame, so even if you roll a 1 using your mini mushroom, you'll still be good to play. All that talk about this bad starting section holds true for every turn, by the way. Avoid the loop as much as you can unless you see the star spawn on it. If you get caught up on its limbo, then your turns will be wasted and your options will be limited, reducing your chances of clenching the win. However, if you have a warp pipe, then you could purposely place yourself before the loop and swap with the biggest threat in the game. This could cripple their chances of winning, make it easier for you to get ahead, and get a fist in your face all at once. If you see someone setting themselves up to play the item minigame, then try using a MiniMega Hammer to megafy them so they'll skip right past it. This hammer is helpful on this board in general because you can manipulate who goes what direction on the teacups by forcing them to roll high or forcing them to roll low. Being mega doesn't affect the teacups in any gameplay way. They'll function as normal except one of them will get squished down as they move the megafied player. It's just an aesthetics thing and rather a funny one at that. If you need to avoid the coaster, then go mega to increase your chances of passing the tracks instead of landing on them. A magic lamp in this title is already a hard buy, but on this board? You're better off using the right gate or coaster to move in between sections. You may even manage to get a magic lamp through the item minigame anyways, so I don't think it'd be a worthwhile purchase unless you need to get to the star and one of the arrows is pointing the wrong way. Then I guess you could buy one. Don't hold your breath though, cause that's a solid 30 coins for the lamp and 20 coins for the star. You could steal a star using Boo for that amount of coins, remember that. Overall, Toad's Midway madness requires you to pay close attention to its gimmick if you want to go the right way, that is. Not doing so may result in you taking a path that'll waste your time, or letting a threat take the path that they want. And come on, this is Mario Party. We don't let our opponents do what they want. Koopa Seaside Soiree is the place you want to be if you're down for luck-based junctions. Oh, you don't want the path you take to come down to a coin flip? Well, too bad! Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the least amount of red spaces at 3, the most amount of happening spaces at 14, jeez. The most amount of chance time spaces at 5, and the least amount of mushroom spaces at 12. Here are its 8 star spaces. One of the Koopas constantly tries to get coins from the players so that he can build the resort hotel, the Koopa Cabana. Every time players pass the Koopa space, they pay 5 coins. If players land on one of the happening spaces in front of it, the Koopa asks that player for a 1-week stay at the Cabana, which is the amount of coins that is currently invested. When the fee is paid, a tidal wave comes in and destroys the Cabana immediately, wasting that player's money. The investment cycle will then start from the beginning. There's a lot of happening spaces around the Cabana, making it easy for you to farm them for the happening star, but landing on one will force you to spend the amount of money that the Cabana has stored up. What a dilemma! Well, look, if your coin count's nearing empty anyways, then there's no harm in landing on a happening space no matter how many coins it threatens to take away. That is, unless you want to force a threat to land on one. How, you ask? by making them mini using the MiniMega Hammer when they're only a few spaces away from the happenings. Their coin loss may seem like a great move at first glance, but keep in mind how many happening spaces they've landed on so you don't accidentally give them the happening bonus star. The Koopa Cabana looks better and better the more coins are funded into it. We'll call them levels to keep it simple, and there's 4 of them. What I'm about to give are my estimates for how many coins are needed to reach each level. This way you'll have a general idea of how many coins one would lose if they landed on one of the happening spaces. Level 1 is 1 to 14 coins. Level 2 is 15 to 25 coins. Level 3 is 26 to 44 coins, and level 4 is 45 coins and higher. If you see that the Cabana is at level 3 or 4, then you'll lose a good chunk of your coins by landing on one of the happening spaces. Consider if it's worth the cost of getting closer to the happening star. You could always mini yourself to try and purposely land on one, or mega to try and pass it altogether. This goes without saying, but you won't have to pay the Koopa 5 coins if you pass one of his spaces while mega. There are 2 Ukiki banana peel junctions on the left and right edges of the board. When they're approached, the Ukiki at the junction will throw a banana peel down, which the player then slips on. This causes them to advance in a random direction up or down. I thought that the paths alternated each time a player came across one of these junctions, but no, it really is random each time a player approaches one. The only exception is if a player is wearing a Bowser suit, then they'll be able to choose a direction manually. But Zoomzag, what if I used a mini mushroom or mega mushroom? Nope, the event plays out like normal either way. I tried. The top path of each junction will lead you to a gate. The left gate's got a chance time space, but its real purpose for existing is to guard your good buddy Boo. If you thought it was difficult to get to him in Toad's Midway madness, you ain't seen nothing yet. To get to him here, you've got to slip on the left junction's banana peel for a 50-50 chance of going up. You also need a mini mushroom in your inventory to get past the gate. But of course, you need to roll high enough to reach the gate in the first place. If you do manage to reach Boo, then don't hesitate making a big play. Unlike some other boards where your opponents can revenge steal quickly, it's unlikely that they'll be able to do that here. This also means that if a threat has a Gaddlight, then using it up will be very difficult. You should instead grab a swap card and flat out take it from them. The right gate has, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this! 4 chance time spaces in a row? Dang! Well, I mean, if you're taking this gate, then you have a 4 and 5 chance of landing on chance time, I guess. It may seem a little ridiculous, but just like with Boo, you need to keep in mind the probability of you being able to get through the gate to begin with. First off, you have a 50-50 chance of going up, and the gate's only 1 space after that. This means you've either got to use the mini mushroom on this 1 space if you get lucky enough to even land on it, or the more probable scenario, one of these 3 spaces. You can't land on this happening space and continue on the path you were going because its event will forcibly bring you somewhere else. In summary, it's quite likely that you may use your mini mushroom on one of these safe spaces just to roll too low to get to the gate, or lose the 50-50 and end up going down. Even if you had a super mini mushroom, which basically lets you roll a 2 to 10 dice block while mini, you'd still have to deal with the 50-50, which could be a real slap in the face. I do think though that if you want the best odds of getting into the right gate, then taking a super mini mushroom would be your best bet. The item minigame on this board involves hitting one of 3 melons that have an item in each. Players are spun around before they choose, making it harder to make a choice. Simply take a moment to figure out how your controls were affected, and press A when your character is facing the melon that contains the item you want. The Gaddlight will make you virtually invincible as long as one of your opponents doesn't swap card you. A magic lamp is always a great grab. The MiniMega Hammer, as said before, can influence whether or not your opponent will land on one of the happening spaces in front of the Koopa Cabana, but you could also use one on an opponent that's looking to land on one of the chance time spaces on the right of the board, so if you're deathly concerned about that, then this hammer could help you out. There's a coin minigame on this board called Fish Fetch. Players are given one of the fishing rods. The chosen rod is used to reel in the fish that gets caught on it. The bigger the fish, the more coins players win. Despite the Koopa Troopa telling you to think carefully about your decision, there doesn't seem to be any indication over which fish is the largest. This isn't the best coin minigame to use your mini mushroom for. but if you're cool with not getting 20 coins every time, then go for it, why not? Players that land in a happening space next to a dock with a picture of a fruit on it, summon a dolphin that takes them to another dock with the corresponding picture. The player cannot refuse to ride the dolphin. Pineapple goes to pineapple, orange goes to orange, and watermelon goes to watermelon. They're pretty simple happening spaces. However, the watermelon docks have 2 happening spaces in front of them each and will grant you 3 coins during the dolphin ride. The devs really thought through the star spaces for this board. Lots of them can be found right after the dock happening spaces, allowing players to make big plays by landing on the happenings so they can take shortcuts to the stars. For example, let's say the star spawned here on the right, and you're all the way over here on the other side. You could use a mini mushroom to increase your chances of landing on one of the happening spaces so you can easily cut through the board to get to the star. The same goes for the other dock happenings. If you're close to one of the corresponding docks that would get you closer to the star, then try mini mushrooming to get ahead. The warp pipe can make big plays on this board. If you see someone on the path towards Boo, then you can swap with them so you get the chance to steal instead. Sure, this is something you could do on every board, but with how difficult Boo can be to get to on this board, it'd be doubly rewarding. Switching places with another player when you get randomly sent down a bad path by the banana junction is also a good reason to use the warp pipe, since you don't want your turns to be wasted being in a bad position. One of the item shops is right in front of the pineapple dock, so if you need the chance to buy a certain item soon and you're up top, then try landing on a dock that'll bring you closer. Slapping a Sparky Sticker down right before the right gate will halt any player behind you that's looking to score a chance time or item minigame. A Sparky Sticker before the gate to Boo could work as well, but the blue space is already a little ways away and it may end up hosting a star anyways, so I wouldn't place the sticker here unless there was no other way to stop the player on their path towards Boo. Overall, Koopa's Seaside Soiree has a couple frustrating luck-based junctions, but it ain't too bad if you're using warp pipes and the dock happening spaces to better position yourself on the board. Don't forget to stop by Goomba's Gala, which is true to its name. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it's the most average in terms of space layout, with the only thing worth noting is that it has the least amount of battle spaces at 3. Here are its 8 star spaces. Allow me to direct your attention to the roulette wheel in the center of the board. It divides it into 4 sections that the players access by playing the roulette. Every time players come to it, the Goomba in charge makes the wheel spin, then throws a marble on it. Wherever the marble lands on is the area the player is taken to. To make it easier, the Goomba asks the player if they want to pay him coins to make them have a better chance, as he says, at getting to the area they want to go. The more coins paid, the better the chances, right? From the tests I've done, it seems like the moment you reach the roulette, the game's already decided on the 2 possible spots that the marble will fall in. No matter how many times I restarted a turn or how long I waited to make a selection, the marble would always fall into one of 2 spots. What's interesting is that one of the spots was always in the zone that contained the star, whereas the other spot was never in the zone that contained the star. We'll call the zone that contains the star zone from now on, okay? I found that when you don't pay any coins, the game will likely place you in the non-star zone spot, whereas paying any amount of coins, yes, even 5 coins, greatly improves your chances of being placed in the star zone spot. You could pay more than 5 coins, but it's rare for the game to place you in the non-star zone spot with that amount, despite how low it is and despite the Goomba saying you must not care about the star too much. I have seen the 5 coin amount fail, but it's once in a blue moon. Simply put, if you wish to enter the star zone, pay 5 coins. If you're rich and wish to enter the star zone, pay 20 coins to guarantee you'll enter it. If you don't wish to enter the star zone, don't pay anything. Ignore the 10 coin option. In the areas, there are a few ways to get out. One way is getting to the dice spots, of which there are 3 on the board, 1 in the red area, 1 in the purple area, and 1 in the blue area. Here, a Goomba appears to challenge the player to a dice game, where the highest number wins. If the player rolls higher, they win 10 coins. If the player rolls lower or the same number as the Goomba, they are sent back to the start. The player automatically loses if Goomba rolls a 10, as, they cannot roll any higher, in which case the Goomba sends them back to the start. You can't increase your odds of winning or losing this game, but you can skip it entirely if you're mega while passing it. This will prevent you from getting ejected from the area you're in if you don't want to leave. You've got to keep in mind the Mega Mushroom's downside though. What if you're here, only a few spaces away from the star, and you decide to use your Mega Mushroom in order to avoid the dice game? Sure, you'll likely skip it, but you may also skip the star due to your Mega stature. In a scenario like this, I'd only use the Mega Mushroom if I was a bit further away from the star so I can reduce my chances of accidentally passing it. Using a Mega Mushroom super close to the star is just asking for trouble. You can move between the purple and blue areas by landing on a happening space at the top of the board. This makes players make their way to the other side of the board by means of riding on a poker chip across a craps table. A Goomba slams into them and they have to control the movement to get the coins on their way to the other side. Simply hold your analog stick left when you're moving left and right when you're moving right. Hitting a wall will force you to change directions, so make sure your analog stick matches the direction you're going. If it doesn't, then you'll slide down the path and miss a lot of coins. You'll start slowing down near the end, so make sure you match that same speed. When completing this event, there will be a happening space in front of you that'll trigger the same event no matter which side you end up on. So you could use a mini mushroom for the chance to do the event again and get more coins. This will also add on to your happening space count, which gives you better odds at obtaining the happening star. You need to consider whether doing this event again is worth more than staying in the new area you got to. If you're in the purple area and you want out, then this event will take you to the blue area, which eventually leads back to the start, so you have options. However, if you're in the blue area, then encountering this event will bring you to the purple area, which you may find frustrating since unlike the blue area, there's no guaranteed path for escape. You've got to consider the pros and cons of moving between these areas before using a mini mushroom to shoot for one of the happening spaces. For one, the blue area leads down to Boo, which surprisingly enough isn't blocked off by a gate. Don't get too excited though, since you still gotta make it through a dice game just a few spaces prior. Only then are you worthy of visiting your ghostly companion. The blue area also has the coin slots minigame. Players do ground pounds to stop each slot. The coin amount shown in a row is the amount of coins they win. If the slots don't match, they get 1 coin. You're given 5 seconds to stop each slot. To get the number you want, which is probably 20, you've got to press the A button one spot before it. So in the case of 20, you need to press A when 10 is front and center. Keep a lookout for blue, and the moment it fully comes into vision, press A. Do the same for the other slots and you'll get your 20 coins. Don't feel down if you get the timing wrong. I'd argue this is the hardest coin minigame to get right. The purple area hosts the item minigame, 3-card Goomba, which involves 3 Goombas on a playing card. Once they show what items they have, they shuffle around. When they stop, the player has to pick a Goomba. The Goomba picked gives the player his item. Simple enough. Even if you lose sight of the item you want, you'll still get something, so don't worry too much. The magic lamp and Gaddlight are as useful as ever, but I'd place more emphasis on the Gaddlight when ahead, especially because Boo isn't as hard to reach as he normally is on this board. The magic lamp can assist you in reaching stars that are in areas other than your own, so it can be of great use to you. Oh right, the gates. The left gate and right gate both have a single chance time space that they guard. Yeah, that's it. Not like the point of taking these gates was for spaces anyways. Their purpose is to provide an additional option for you to move between areas. The left gate will let you move from the red area to the purple area, whereas the right gate will let you move from the green area to the blue area. Since the right gate only comes 3 spaces after entering the green area, you probably won't see it used too often. But if you do find yourself close by and eager to dive into the blue, then use a mini mushroom to move on through. You may even get to the coin slots if you do. The left gate can help you move out of the red area, but its placement is rather mean. If you use your mini mushroom 2, 3, 4, or 5 spaces away from it, then not only do you need to roll high enough to reach it, you've also got to beat the dice game. If you lose, then you'll be sent back to the start, having wasted a mini mushroom. The only way to guarantee that you'll enter the left gate is if you're on the mushroom space right behind it. I'd still recommend attempting this move if you're trying to get out of the red area. Players can easily find themselves looping back around again and again due to the dice game, so taking a chance on exiting early can save yourself a few turns. The MiniMega Hammer on this board can be cruel since there are so many ways to prevent a player from doing what they want. Think back to the gate we just covered. If a threat's on the space right before it, planning to leave by using a mini mushroom, then you could force them to be mega, skipping the gate entirely, negating the lucky position they found themselves in. If a threat's attempting to leave an area by losing a dice game, then you can make them mega, forcing them to skip it. You could also do this for a threat that's attempting to land on one of the happening spaces lined up at the top of the board, since not only can they move to a different area, but they can also make about 15 coins while doing so. A threat will find an easier time getting to Boo in this place, which you can deny them of by making them mega. There's so many scenarios where a MiniMega Hammer would prove useful here that if I had a surplus of coins, I'd definitely buy one should a threat attempt to make a big move. There are 2 star spaces in each area, but the blue area will lead you to 3 of them. It also has an item shop and has the path towards Boo, as we mentioned earlier. So if there's any area to get stuck in, it's this place. One could argue that the red area is decent too, since you can play the lottery game on every loop around, but since that take 3 turns on average, I wouldn't give it too much credit. It does have 2 star spaces close to each other though, which means if one spawns here while you're in the area, then you'll be close by. With all this talk about getting stuck in areas, we've got to bring up the trusty warp pipe once more. This item has really grown on me in this title. At first I just considered the warp pipe to be exactly like the warp block from previous titles and went on my way, but the fact that you can consistently time its roulette to switch with whomever you want on boards where your placement is essential has proven to be incredibly useful. For this board, you could cause chaos upon your opponents by switching your bad placement with their good one. Stuck in the red area with nothing to do while a threat's closing in on the star, warp pipe and switch the 2 of you. Even if you get the timing wrong, you're gonna switch with someone, so if your placement was already terrible, then it can only get better. Of course, you want to check where everyone is if you're not confident in timing the roulette yourself, but hear me, you should really get good at timing that roulette, because if you do, then you'll have a lot of control over its event whenever it pops up. If you are good at the roulette, then I'd recommend buying a warp pipe before a MiniMega Hammer, but if you're not good at the roulette, then maybe play it safe and get the hammer instead. They both have their uses in screwing up an opponent on this board, but the warp pipe can cripple a player by placing them into a bad position that you once occupied. Overall, Goomba's greedy Gala presents itself as a luck-based nightmare, but you can still overcome it as long as you make good plays with your items, both the ones you use on yourself and the ones that affect others. Boo's Haunted Bash is a blast. It's my favorite board in this title and one I'm excited to talk about. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the least amount of happening spaces at 2, and the least amount of total spaces at 76. Here are its 8 star spaces. Where to start? There are 3 transparent bridges on the board. Every time a player passes the big red Boo, he and the bridges will disappear and reappear when another player comes by. You get no say in the matter. If you pass the big red Boo, then he will turn the bridges on if they were off, or off if they were on. The Mega Mushroom can skip this event, so that, along with other moves you can make with it, gives you some options. You need to remember that this event will not only affect you, but your opponents as well. Check their placements before visiting the big red Boo and consider if you'd be helping them or hurting them. Sure, turning the bridges on may let you take a shortcut, but it may also let a threat reach the star. Scenarios like this will pop up constantly, so you need to be aware of what the others are doing, even while you're not close to the big red Boo, since that'll let you know if you need to use a Mega Mushroom to hurry across a bridge or a Mini Mushroom to wait until a bridge will appear. An example of the latter is if you were next to the starting space, the star's right here, and the bridges are off. But a player's close to the big red Boo. You could use a Mini Mushroom to not move much, wait until the other player turns the bridges on, and then you can cross the bridge to get to the star. There are tons of possibilities for these bridges, but let's move on to the mystery train, which can only be ridden when the bridges are off. Other players that get in the way get on board too, so that they also end up where the player in front is heading. While on it, the player in front is able to change direction of the train to other parts of the board until they reach a graveyard. Here are the 4 paths that the mystery train can take, along with the space that players are left on after they've taken a path. If you're the one that activated the event, then you'll still move the amount of spaces you had left before encountering it. so if you were going to move one more space, then you'll still get to do that. It's also worth mentioning that you can't say no to riding the mystery train. It's a forced event, unless you skip it by being Mega, which I wouldn't consider doing often since this train can really help you move around the board. The left path can help you reach an item shop or this star space, but even so, it ain't that useful. The bottom path has an item shop even closer to it, and the only way you'd be shooting for this star space is if it appeared right behind you while you were on either this blue space or this warp space, and in order for you to even be on this warp space, you would have had to get warped there yourself, since of course landing on a warp space will teleport you to another player. The other scenario where you'd be shooting for this star is if you didn't have enough coins the first time around and wanted to try going for it again, which is more likely, but I still can't see this left path finding much use. The bottom path is a single space away from an item shop, which is nice. It's also got 2 star spaces in its path, so I can easily see this path being used every now and again. But Zoomzyke, what about this star space? Well, the mystery train can only be used when the bridges are off. And if you're the one that activated the train, then that means you still have at least one more space to travel, which means you'll immediately come upon this junction where your only option is to move left. The right path is the one I see myself using more often than not. It stops you only a few spaces away from Boo, which is great. Like I said earlier, the mystery train is only active when the bridges are turned off, and when they're off, players can't visit Boo by crossing a bridge, which makes using Boo during this period that much more powerful since your opponents likely can't revenge steal anytime soon. I say likely because they can of course have a crystal ball, or you may have accidentally moved them to Boo with you. Yeah, we need to talk about that. Like I said before, when you're choosing which path to go, any players you cross with will join the ride with you. So if you take the right path towards Boo and bring anyone with you, then they'll be in the same position as you. This is when you've got to think about their coin count and what items everyone has. Can the player or players you're bringing along revenge steal from you if you steal from them? Maybe they don't even have enough coins to take their star back if you steal it from them. Maybe you have a Gaddlight, so it won't even matter if you bring a player towards Boo. If you really want to visit Boo, but there's someone on the right path, then consider taking the top right path. This is the shortest path, and it's only a few more spaces away from Boo than the right path. So if there's a player or players you can't afford to bring to Boo, then take this top right path instead. It's much safer. Boo aside, it's also got a star space, and the item minigame called Horn of Plenty, which is random, sadly. But hey, you'll get something out of it, so there is that. This mystery train event is way more useful than most players give it credit for, and I think it's because of the odd third-person perspective it has during it. Remember the map so you don't get mixed up with where you're going. I'd actually recommend looking at the map right before you're about to encounter the mystery train, since it doesn't let you look at the map before the event starts. A quick reminder could save you from making a mistake that could very well cost you the game. We're not done yet with big gimmicks though. Remember how I said there's only 2 happening spaces on this board? Well, they can both be found on the top right corner. Players that land on one make a clock countdown to when the infamous big bodacious blue Boo Boy comes. The 3rd time the clock counts down is when he'll appear. For 15 coins, he will steal coins from every other player in the game. For 150 coins, he will steal a star from every other player in the game. The Gaddlight does not work for the big Boo. What? This Boo is absolutely insane. If every other player has a decent amount of coins, then you can see over 75 coins stolen at once. That could single-handedly put you in the running for the coin star, but let's say you were already rich. You could pay this absolute unit of a Boo 150 coins to steal a star from every player, and none of them could do a thing about it. This is one of the most game-changing moves you could ever make in a game of Mario Party if every other player has a star. If only 2 players have one, then is 150 coins really worth it? Maybe if a big threat's been protecting themselves with a Gaddlight, since this kind of steal ignores those, but otherwise I wouldn't pay 150 coins for only 2 stars. That's a 50 coin loss. That kind of play should be a last resort, where you need 2 of your opponents to lose a star, possibly because the game's going to end soon. You've also got to remember that there's a regular Boo only a few more spaces away. It's likely you'll reach him too, since there aren't any board events that can move you off the path. Just the 1 warp space, that's it. What I like to do is use our big blue friend to steal coins from all of my opponents so I can secure the coin star. I then use the regular Boo to steal a star from the biggest threat to my game. This way, I get a bonus star and a regular star that's been subtracted from my biggest threat's star count, which is an amazing deal for me. If the big Boo boy didn't steal enough coins for me to get the coin star, then I'd think about who currently has it. If it's the biggest threat, then I'd use regular Boo to just steal coins, so I can safely secure the coin star. If someone other than the biggest threat had the coin star, then I'd just let them have it and use the regular Boo to steal a star from the biggest threat like normal. What a load of crazy events, huh? Let's take a look at the gates, starting with the one on the right, which guards 3 chance time spaces. Goody! And unlike Koopa's Seaside Soiree, these chance time spaces are fairly easy to get to, so if you're looking to shake up the game and fast, then using a mini mushroom before this gate should cleanly set you up for, hopefully, good fortune. You could also use this gate to get to the item minigame, this star space, or, of course, Boo. This move would likely happen when the bridges are turned off. The left gate leads to a star space and the Rhythm and Boo coin minigame. Players have to keep up with the Boo to press the buttons shown on the keys. The more keys they get right at the end of the game, the more coins are given. Mistakes or not reacting means less coins. Despite the game having the word rhythm in its title, you don't need to press any buttons to a rhythm. Simply press the button you see appear on the upcoming key as quickly as possible. The possible buttons are A, B, X, Y, Z, L, and R. There are no repeat buttons, which you can use to your advantage. For example, if you've already gone through A, B, X, Y, and Z, then the next button will be either L or R, so prepare for either one. It gets super easy on the last button, since all you've got to press is the button that hasn't been shown yet. The last key, marked by a sticker, isn't a part of the game, so don't worry about it. If someone's about to summon Big Boo by landing on one of the happening spaces for the 3rd time, then you've got to prevent that cataclysmic event. The MiniMega Hammer can megafy the threat so they'll overshoot the happening spaces. You could also minify them, but then what if they get to Big Boo on their next turn? It is possible that the bridges will turn off before they get the chance, but I'd rather them skip the happening spaces entirely instead of risking total annihilation. There could be a scenario where allowing, or dare I say, helping another player activate Big Boo would result in a plus for you. What if you're in no position to take out the biggest threat at the moment? Letting another player activate Big Boo could give them the opportunity to gather enough coins and subsequently steal from the biggest threat using regular Boo. Sure, you would still lose coins in the process, but it'd be a worthy sacrifice because the other 2 players lose coins and the placings get evened out a bit, which makes first place a little easier to topple. All of this is, of course, a desperate move. It'd be much better for you to activate Big Boo yourself, which is why it's good to have a warp pipe on hand. See a player close to the happening spaces when they've been landed on twice, switch with that player and try to land on one of the happenings yourself. They don't even need to be close to the happening spaces to be a worthwhile warp pipe target. They could be close to regular Boo and it'd still be worth it. I'm not saying the warp pipe is as good as the reverse shroom from Mario Party 3, but it's great in its own right as long as you can time the roulette properly. Oh my gosh, just practice it. I swear it's gonna be worth it. As if enough pressure hasn't already been put on these 2 happening spaces, we've got the happening star, making it absolutely crucial that you land on these boys a few times throughout the game so you can secure that bonus star. It's also another reason to force a player to skip these spaces. Overall, Boo's Haunted Bash is chock full of plays just waiting to be made. If you're not checking the map every turn of yours to take a peek on where everyone is, then you're not playing this board right. Now entering Shy Guy's Jungle Jam. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the most amount of red spaces at 9, the least amount of chance time spaces at 1, the most amount of warp spaces at 5, and the most amount of total spaces at 95. Here are its 8-star spaces. The happening spaces are in front of 2 Shy Guy wells on the board. Players who land on these make either a happy wish or a sad wish to the Shy Guy statue. If the statue likes the wish, a little fanfare comes, causing nothing to affect the board. If it doesn't like the wish, it gives the player an angry look. This also causes the mountain to flood the middle of the board, cutting it in half either 1, 2, or 3 turns, indicated by the number on its forehead. If the player lands on these spaces again while the river is flooding, nothing happens. Now, you may be thinking, oh, this is cool. If I make a happy wish, then nothing will happen. But if I make a sad wish, then I can purposely cut the board in half. And now you may be thinking, oh, since Zoomzyke's talking like this, the event must not be that simple. And you'd sadly be right. It doesn't matter if you make a happy wish or a sad wish. The result is predetermined. Then Zoomzyke, why do they even bother letting players make one of 2 wishes in the first place? To give you the illusion of control. An illusion which I have shattered. Flooding the river will prevent players from crossing the bridges, which easily hurt a threat's placement by forcing them to move a different direction. You're not totally screwed if the river's flooded though. Klepto can be found resting at the top left corner of the board, at least at the beginning of a game. Players get to wake him up. He then asks if the player wants to cross the bridge for 5 coins. If the player accepts, Klepto takes the player to the other half of the board. Along the way, players can steer left or right to collect coins in the air, and from the volcano eruption if one happens, which it rarely does. You can easily get around 10 coins from this event, which more than negates its 5 coin cost. All that's left for you is to decide if it's worth traveling to the other side of the board in the first place. Yeah, it may be annoying to get stuck on one side of the board, but that doesn't mean that the place you're stuck at is bad per se. It could be better than the other side, so don't automatically assume that you need to cross the river the moment it gets flooded. Alternatively, the grass could be greener on the other side, in which case you'd want to get there as soon as possible, perhaps for a star or whatever else is calling out to you. I shouldn't have to say this, but the Klepto is not strong enough to carry you while you're mega, so you will skip the event if you're super big. Try not to accidentally pass him if his event is one you want to take up. He can carry you while you're mini though. Our good old Klepto ain't the only way to overcome the flooding river. A Shy Guy on a raft also takes players across the river for a random price, which ranges to as low as 5 coins to as high as 20. It's possible the price may go outside of that range, but I've never seen it happen. This one-way trip, should you choose to accept it, will take you to this space on the other side of the river, which is actually a star space. Huh. So if a star has spawned here, then taking the ride may be worth it. In all honesty though, I don't see this Shy Guy used too often. Is it that he's too hard to reach? Cost too much? Maybe it's both. I'd rather use the Klepto since he'll actually give coins when crossing the river instead of taking some away. He won't always be available though, so you may find yourself in a rough situation where you need the Shy Guy's help in crossing to the other side. Let's just hope he won't charge you much. The item minigame Treasure Tree involves 3 items hanging from a tree. They sway left and right. The player needs to time their jump to hit the item they want. To get the item you want, simply jump when the one before it is above you. So if you want the item on the right and everything swinging left, then you'd press A when the middle item is above you. The only time you wouldn't do this is if you're shooting for the middle item, in which case you'd press A the moment the item starts swinging in the opposite direction. The coin minigame, How High Fly Guy, involves winding up a small fly guy. The more the player winds it up, the higher it goes. Its maximum height determines the number of coins. You'll crush this minigame whether you're a great or terrible button masher. Seriously, you can get a great amount of coins without even trying. You should obviously still button mash to guarantee you get 20 coins, but dang is your work cut out for you. The right gate guards the Shy Guy we talked about earlier, along with a long row of spaces, which all lead to the same area that the regular path leads to. The main difference is that it drops off on the 3 happening spaces at the top, which can help you in attaining the happening star. So if you're able to go through this gate and don't need to visit the item shop on the main path, then I'd recommend building up your happening count as much as you can. This may flood the river though, so check your opponent's placements beforehand and consider how they may react. We've talked about using a mini mushroom to increase your odds of landing on a happening space before, and that's doubly true here when you've got 3 happening spaces in a row. Don't be afraid to use a mini, especially because there's that coin mini minigame right after the top 3 happenings. The left gate guards a star space, chance time, and of course, Boo! A simple mini mushroom maneuver will help you reach him, but only if you can get to the left gate in the first place. If the river's flooding and you're not on the right side, or the left side, then you'll have trouble getting to your spooky friend. This is when you need to consider options like the Klepto and Shy Guy if Boo is the move you need to make. You could always say screw the board event and get a warp pipe, which can help you switch with the player that's on the side of the board that you want to be on. Doing this during a flood can cripple a threat by forcing them into an undesirable position. If there's currently a flood, then you can use a Mega Mini Hammer to force a threat Mega as they're about to approach Klepto, causing them to skip the event and remain stuck on the side they're on. They could adapt to this move by taking Shy Guy instead, but they need to have a mini mushroom and roll high enough to take the right gate, and even if they do, then they may need to take another turn to actually reach Shy Guy, and then they'd have to pay coins, in which case so much of their time will have been wasted to make your move worth it. You always want to check how much longer the flood's going to last via the countdown on the Shy Guy's head before trapping a threat on a certain side. It'd be pointless to megafy a threat past Klepto just for the flood to end next turn anyways. That may actually help your opponent if you're not careful. The magic lamp can help you get to some hard to reach stars like the 2 behind the gate, and possibly every star on the board if you're on the wrong side during a flood. I'd hesitate purchasing a lamp, but would recommend grabbing one in the item mini minigame if you can. The Gaddlight is useful no matter where you go, if you haven't figured that one out already. It's not too hard to reach Boo on this board, so I'd always have one on me if I could. Overall, Shy Guy's Jungle Jam can shift your game on a dime through its river flooding event. Know your options to overcome it, and you'll be the one jamming it out while your opponents are stuck in a jam. Bowser's Gnarly Party is pretty gnarly. Here's the space lineup. Out of all the boards, it has the most amount of blue spaces at 56, and ties for the least amount of warp spaces at 2. You'd think that a Bowser board would be the last place to have tons of blue spaces, huh? Here are its 8 star spaces. Every time a stone bridge is crossed, pieces of it will crumble off. When it's crossed 3 times, it collapses and a new one appears leading in the other direction. Being mega or mini has no bearing on what will happen to the bridge. At first I thought, oh hey, if I'm mega while I cross it, it'll just crumble instantly, right? But nope, it treated me as if I was regular sized. Same thing with the mini mushroom. I feel like this was kind of a lost opportunity. My biggest issue with this title is that it's so chock full of mega and mini mushrooms that fill up my inventory, but if the boards were more focused on these fungi, then they wouldn't have been so harsh on them. It'd be cool if the bridges crumbled instantly if you crossed them while mega, or inversely, didn't crumble at all if you crossed them while mini. Instead, we're faced with a similar issue to the starting section of Toad's Midway Madness, where players are funneled a certain direction without much of a way to alter their path. The main option we're left with is altering our space count with a mini or mega mushroom to manipulate when we cross each bridge. For example, if the desired bridge can only be crossed one more time and there's a couple players headed there with you, then a mega mushroom can help you blitz ahead and force them down the other path. If instead you want them to go ahead so the bridge will change directions, then minify yourself and let them take the lead. Bowser is always on his platform somewhere on the board. His placement will always be on top of a star space, but not the one currently active, of course. This can help you keep track of where possible stars will spawn. Bowser will be waiting for a character to pass him, and changes his position every time a player buys a star from Koopa Kid. He does different things to players depending on what size they are. When a player reaches him at normal size, he takes away half of their coins, or gives them 50 coins if they have none. If you're about to reach Bowser next turn and you have 0 coins, then you might want to purposely lose the next minigame, something we call throwing. This will grant you 50 coins from Bowser due to you being broke. The drawback to this move is that you wouldn't be earning any coins towards the minigame star, so if you and another player are about even on minigame wins, then consider if throwing is worth it or not. If a player reaches Bowser while miniaturized, he'll use his fire breath to send them to a different starting point in the middle of the board, indicated by his face. The 3 spaces in this unique starting section are Bowser, Chance, and Bowser again, respectively, which is certainly a spooky lineup. There's a blue pathway at the end of this path, which will be leading either up or down. It has about a 50% chance of switching directions whenever Bowser moves, aka whenever a star is purchased. This is why you've got to check the map if you're planning on being mini when you run by Bowser. Accidentally going up when you thought the pathway was pointing down is a mistake that may cripple your position for many turns to come, since you might find one of the bridges pointing away you don't want to go. If a player gets to Bowser in their Mega form, he challenges them to either Bowser Wrestling or Panels of Doom, chosen randomly. If the player loses, half of their coins are taken away and he remains on the same spot on the board. Victory results in Bowser leaving the board until a player buys a star from Koopa Kid. He will then reappear in a different position. Panels of Doom is entirely luck-based, whereas Bowser Wrestling is pretty winnable. I'd say the odds of beating Bowser while Mega are in your favor, so long as you know the strats for Bowser Wrestling. To learn more about them, I recommend watching this video called Identifying Luck Mario Party 4. If a player reaches Bowser while wearing the Bowser suit, he gives the player 50 coins. If you don't want to use your Bowser suit but you need to pass Bowser without losing coins, then going Mega for a chance to beat him is your best bet. You could also go Mini and get sent to the Bowser start, given you're okay with which way the blue platform is pointing and where the bridges are. Zoomzyke, why wouldn't I be okay with using the Bowser suit to get 50 coins? Because if you pass a player while in it, you'll steal 30 coins, which can ruin their game if they're about to purchase a star or get an item they need. I'd save the suit for a move like this, unless I wasn't confident I'd be able to do it anytime soon, or I needed to find a way to pass Bowser without losing half of my coins. Every 4 turns, starting on turn 6, Bowser uses his magic to miniaturize everyone for that turn. This also disables the player's ability to use items, similar to a MiniMega Hammer. This means you'll see Bowser use his mini magic on turn 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, 26, 30, 34, 38, 42, 46, and 50. If he doesn't skip any turns. It's rare, but there's a small chance that he'll wait an extra turn or 2 to minify everyone. Despite this wrench in the system, he's pretty consistent with waiting 4 turns, so I'd play under the assumption that he'll stick to that pattern. If he skips the 4th turn, then it's highly likely he'll minify everyone the next. Possible moves that take advantage of Bowser's pattern would be landing yourself right in front of a desired gate so Bowser can turn you mini and help you pass it. You could also stop right in front of the Koopa Kid Shuffle item minigame so you can mini your way into it. Here, a Koopa Kid puts an item in each of 3 boxes. The player then chooses one of them. However, the player does not get the item in the one he or she chooses. Instead, that box becomes locked. The player then chooses a different box, in which Koopa Kid has a 50-50 chance of either granting the player that item or the one from the unchosen box. Simply put, your first selection should be the item you least want. So if you see a Gaddlight, don't pick it first. Choose something else and hope you win the 50-50 to get it. The coin minigame, Break Bullet Bill, involves a Koopa Kid shooting a bullet bill at the player, and the player must mash the A button to slow it down with their hands. The faster the player mashes the A button, the shorter the speeding bullet will fly, and the player will be awarded with more coins as well. This one's hard. I just can't manage to get 20 coins out of it, only 15 at most. Start mashing as fast as possible the moment it tells you to. It's a doozy. Landing on any of the happening spaces located behind the gates will cause the Bowser head statue in front of the spaces to breathe fire, destroying one of the player's items. This makes it difficult to reach the Koopa Kid Shuffle item minigame, since if you stop right before it with a mini mushroom in tow, then it can get burned up just like that. You'd either have to use your mini mushroom on one of 2 earlier blue spaces, or have a different item in your inventory to sacrifice to the flames. It's hard to suggest even shooting for this board's item minigame, all things considered. What if you have a Gaddlight in your inventory? Is getting another item really worth the risk of losing that? I wouldn't say so. But then we've got to acknowledge the fact that these Bowser head statues hold on to the only happening spaces on the entire board. So if you want any chance of getting the happening star, then you need to land on them at least once, ideally without holding any items you care for or any items at all. The warp pipe can help you get out of a path that you didn't want to take while you leave your target there instead. Hope you had fun with this version of the warp pipe in this title, since it's gonna change in the future, sadly. The MiniMega Hammer can force a threat to take a path that they don't want to take. It can also force a threat Mega to fight Bowser for a chance at losing half their coins, or Mini to get burned by Bowser so they'll get thrown to the Bowser starting section. Either way, both items are great at causing chaos here. Overall, Bowser's Gnarly Party is all about keeping your eyes on the bridges and considering what their current state may mean for each player. This title has 45 minigames that all have a chance to pop up in party mode. There's 16 4-player minigames, 9 1v3 minigames, 9 2v2 minigames, 6 battle minigames, and 3 Bowser minigames. 4-player minigames: Avalanche. Don't get swallowed by the avalanche behind you. Ski down the mountain and avoid the obstacles too. This ain't a button masher, thankfully. Press A at a decent pace for your poor fingers and your character will be going as fast as they can with their pulls. Bumping into players to screw them up is incredibly difficult in this minigame. Focus on being number one instead of being a hindrance, especially because only one player can win the game. Doesn't matter if you and an opponent outski the avalanche, whoever reaches the end first is the winner. The others will be left stuck in a snowball, I guess. The minigame explanation says to watch out for the walls, but they don't seem to slow you down much at all. The boulders are what you want to avoid. Run into one and you'll get stunned and left behind quick. If this happens, then don't give up. There's a chance your opponents will make the same mistake as you. Luckily, I've identified that this minigame's layout is the same every time, which means you can memorize the boulder's locations. The first boulder will be hugging the bottom wall right after a slope, which you want to use for extra speed, by the way. As soon as you land, start moving up to avoid that dastardly rock. The second boulder will be in the middle as you make your next turn. It's easier to avoid by hugging the top wall than the bottom wall since turning is a little slippery. The third and final boulder will be hugging the bottom wall. Keep towards the open space above it and you'll be just fine. If you do all this and ride every slope, then you'll ice the competition. Bob-omb Breakers. Connect 3 like shapes to make them disappear. Remember, you can also play in other people's areas. First one to 100 points wins. Despite the minigame telling players that they can play in other people's areas, I still see people only staying in their own zone. This will severely reduce your chances of winning. The entire area is your playing field. Don't forget that, sport. If you're able to capitalize off a combo in someone else's zone, then do it, especially if a bomb's involved. It'll explode the moment it's fully surrounded by blocks. The player it awards points to is the one that finished surrounding it. Make sure that person's you, since you'll not only gain the points from the explosion, but possibly points from a combo that comes afterward too. If your zone fills up to the top with blocks, then you won't be able to play anymore. This isn't a game over though. If a different player combos off one of the blocks in your zone, then you'll have room to play again. Knowing this, you could potentially lock out a player of winning this minigame by flooding every piece you have into their zone until it's filled up. This can backfire if you accidentally set him up for a good combo, so be careful. I'd only do this if there was a player I really didn't want winning the minigame. Booksquirm. Avoid getting flattened by the pages. Find a hole in the falling page and position yourself so you fit through to the next page. A spot with text written on it will not have a hole to go through. There are 3 symbols: a star, a moon, and a sun. Each symbol has 2 variations, one without a hole, which will squish you, and one with a hole, which you can go through. The star without a hole will be upright, whereas the star with a hole will be tilted. The moon without a hole will be angled downwards, whereas the moon with a hole will be angled upwards. The sun without a hole has a thick line for its circle, whereas the sun with a hole has a thin line for its circle. Keep your eyes glued to the top page, scanning for either a tilted star, upwards moon, or thin line sun. When you find one, move to where it's gonna fall. Running into your opponents will move them around, so if you want to see them flattened fast, then push them away from the hole you're occupying. Pages 1 through 9 will have 3 holes, pages 10 through 14 will have 2 holes, and pages 15 through 99 will have 1 hole. Once you reach about 30 pages, it'll be flipping so fast that if there's a hole on one side of the book followed by one on the other side of the book, then you'll get squished if you weren't already moving towards it. The solution? Once pages start falling this fast, assume that the next hole will be the one furthest away from you and start running that direction immediately. If it is the farthest one away, then great, keep running and go through it. If it's not the farthest one away, then change your course and continue. At 40 pages and beyond, they'll be flipping so fast that going from corner hole to corner hole will be impossible to reach in time. Not even Task can do it, and he's amazing at this stuff. Domination. Press the switch repeatedly to set up your Womp dominoes. Imagine being given the opportunity to make a Mario Party minigame using all your creativity just to make yet another button masher. Press A as quickly as you can. Long Claw of the Law. Catch the character shown in the wanted poster 3 times to win. Everyone shares the same layout, so if your opponent finds a wanted character at a certain spot, then you will too. Take advantage of this when the minigame begins. Start by rotating left. Why left? Because most players begin by rotating right. This way, when you keep an eye on one of your opponent's screens, you'll almost certainly be getting a different view of the area than your own. If there's a wanted character where you are, then nab it. If you notice the opponent you're watching comes across a wanted character, then quickly make your way over there. Repeat this process if you can. If not, or if this just sounds like a hassle to you, then play the minigame regularly by focusing strictly on your own screen, moving on whenever the wanted character doesn't show up. I'm telling you though, if you can divide your attention even a little bit by screen peeking, then you'll give yourself a massive advantage. Manta Rings. Dive through the rings while swimming in the ocean. Each ring is worth 1 point. If any enemies hit you, you'll lose points. If 2 or more players are going for the same ring, then whoever's further ahead will likely get it. If multiple players are equally far ahead, then whoever's closer to the middle of the ring will likely get it. I say likely because it can feel inconsistent at times. You can tell how far ahead or behind everyone is based on their shadows, so if you see yours falling behind, then you aren't button mashing fast enough. The Manta Ray will appear twice. The first is at the second abyss. The second is at the end of all the pillars. Prepare for when the Manta Ray is about to appear. The moment you see it, start following its tail. That's where the gold Manta Rings, which are worth 3 points, will come out. Mash the A button as fast as you can, aim for the middle of these gold rings, and you'll set yourself up for a high score. Avoid the enemies when possible. Not only will they subtract points from your score, but they'll also knock you behind your opponents. An eel will appear out of nowhere right after the pirate ship, so don't get caught off guard. Mario Medley. Breaststroke, backstroke, and crawl. You must do a 25-meter lap of each different stroke to win this race. The optimal pattern is to press the required buttons in 3s with a brief pause in the middle. It should sound something like this. If your stamina is reaching full all the time, then you're going too slow. If it's running on empty, then you're going too fast. When you're close to the end, use up all of your stamina in a final burst. Mario Speedwagons. Time to race on the speedway. Step on the gas when the light turns green. The advice on the rules screen is a bit misleading. Accelerating a little before the green light hasn't given me an amazing score no matter how many variations I tested. My best results came from accelerating the moment the green light appeared. Keep an eye on the needle. The moment it's about to touch the red, press A. Repeat this process until you reach the finish line. Don't stop accelerating until the minigame ends. Mr. Blizzard's Brigade. Run in this frozen pond while avoiding the snowballs thrown by the blizzards. The Mr. Blizzards don't throw their snow wherever, they'll always target a living player's current position when starting their animation. This is why you want to pay close attention to your opponent's positions throughout the match, especially near the end where multiple snowballs are being thrown. Don't run into a spot that your opponent was in just a moment ago. Move somewhere new where the Mr. Blizzards aren't going to throw anything. You can move players around a little in this minigame, but it's too inconsequential to amount to much. Also keep in mind that you slip a little while running. Paratrooper Plunge. This is a coin collecting bonus game. If you run into enemies 4 times, you're out. You'll keep the coins you collected even if you get out, so don't be afraid of making a risky play. But be warned, every time you get hurt, you'll become intangible to enemies and coins for a short time, which isn't good. The enemies' patterns are the same every time, so if you want to memorize them, then you have my permission. The coins and coin bags won't immediately go past you once they're on the same layer as you. They'll kindly stay there for a moment, giving you a chance at collecting them, so don't give up if one's been there for a little bit. Move other players out of the way as you collect your coins and coin bags. If someone's already close to something you want, then shove them out of the way to take it for yourself. There's a good chance for you to take a couple of the coin bags near the end, since players tend to struggle with avoiding the shy guys in the middle. Be cautious as you approach a coin bag, and once you get it, immediately fly to another one. Photo finish. Please finish this photo puzzle. You can only drop a piece in its proper place, so you'll know when you found the correct spot. There are 3 variations of this minigame: Toad, Shy Guy, and Penguin. No matter which variation you get, you want to divide the puzzle pieces into 2 groups: top pieces and bottom pieces. This will make it easier to know what goes where. For example, the top Toad pieces are the ones with the wall. The bottom Toad pieces are the ones with the carpet. If you get a piece that has the wall on it, you know it goes up top. If you get a piece that has the carpet on it, you know it goes on the bottom. To figure out where exactly each piece goes, you want to check if it's a corner piece or not. If it is, then quickly place it in the correct corner. If it's not, then find its spot in the middle. Slime time. Escape from the slime. Be the first person to reach the middle platform to win. This button mash is kinda mean. Your character will be so close to the middle platform, making you think you're only a second away from the minigame being over, but don't stop mashing until a winner's been decided. If at any point you do stop mashing, then the slime will pull you back and you'll have to start over. Of course, that's never happened to me in this minigame, because I never button mash. Stamp out. Try to stamp as much of your color as possible. If everyone stamps less than 5% of the field, it's a tie. Don't treat this minigame like a button masher. If you do, then you won't be stamping at the optimal speed. You want to hop a little bit, but not too much, or you'll have gaps in between your stamps. Once you find the speed, keep up the rhythm. Whether or not you should stamp over an opponent's stamps depends on their personality. Are they the kind of person to even notice that you're stamping over their stamps? If not, then go for it. If they are the type to notice, are they the type to be vengeful and do it to you back? If they aren't, then take advantage just a little. If they are, then stay away. An opponent stamping over your stuff will ruin your game. It's not worth getting into a fight with an opponent constantly stamping over each other's stamps. It'll just waste time and you'll both lose. If an opponent is the one that starts stamping over your stamps, then call them out on it. Maybe they'll stop. If they don't, then you may be able to get the others to turn on them by saying their stamps have been stamped over by your perpetrator as well. The best scenario is that no one stamps on your stamps at all though, so don't make any enemies and defend your ground if you see it start to happen. I like stamping around the border of the map, since it creates distance between me and the other players, which makes it harder for a player to get to my stuff. If a player is far away from your stamps and the timer's running out, then you could stamp over their stuff and they won't have enough time to retaliate. It's best to do this on whoever's the biggest threat. Speaking of which, call out the biggest threat whenever you can. If it's you, then claim someone else is leading. With a minigame like this, it can be hard to tell who's really ahead. Take a breather. Take a deep breath and see who can stay underwater the longest. Only the clicks of your L and R triggers matter, so make sure you're alternating the clicks of L and R as quickly as possible to hold your breath longer than your opponents. 3 throw. Try to make the most shots into the moving baskets. Your priority should be the middle baskets that are worth 2 points instead of 1. To land a ball in one, you've got to shoot after the highest point of a jump. To land a ball in a regular basket up top, you've got to shoot at the highest point of a jump. You can't directly aim for the lower baskets. Those get filled up when balls miss their mark on the higher ones. All baskets will be moving one direction for 15 seconds and will switch their direction during the last 15 seconds. The middle basket in particular will be moving left at first and then right later on. When it's moving left, you want to start your jump as soon as it lines up with the baskets that are above and below it. Then make your shot for it. Repeat this process over and over. If you notice that the upcoming middle basket is already filled, then shoot for the top basket using the same method. Jump when it lines up with the other baskets. The basket's reversing directions doesn't change anything. Simply wait until the middle basket lines up with the others to jump once more. Not like you can choose your position, but it's worth mentioning for salt's sake that whoever's at the far right has the advantage. If they're good enough, they can fill up nearly all of the middle baskets by themselves, leaving little room for anyone else. What a bummer. Do your best and make Kobe proud. Toad's Quick Draw. When Toad raises the flag, you have to find the balloon that's the same color and shoot it. He can raise the same color multiple times in a row. Focus your eyes on the balloons and use your peripheral vision to see what color flag Toad holds up. This way, you'll get a good grip of where all the colored balloons are located and can react accordingly, especially if your cursor is in between multiple balloons. If, even with this strategy, you aren't confident in your reaction time, then you can turn this into a luck-based minigame by honing in on 1 or 2 balloons alone. If Toad happens to show the color of either of the balloons you're aiming at, then you'll be able to hit either one quicker than a player that's trying to keep track of them all. The downside of this strategy is its luck element. It'll only work out for you if Toad decides to raise a flag that matches one of the balloons you're aiming at. If he doesn't, then you've got to quickly find where the right balloon is, which probably won't happen since you were focusing on a select couple. If you don't trust your reaction time to focus on 2 balloons, then I guess you could just keep your cursor on a single balloon and mash the A button, hoping that you're right when the time comes. It's not like there's any penalty for hitting the wrong balloon. You can even keep firing after hitting the wrong one. But keep in mind that the cooldown in between shots will take a bit, so this strat isn't exactly reliable. 1v3 minigames. Blame it on the crane. One player uses a crane to try to capture the other 3 players. The other 3 must try to avoid the claw. The solo player can hold A for a long time, letting the crane move back and forth over and over again. It'll eventually stop and grab something on its own though, so this isn't really worth doing. The Team 03 can move forward or backward along the platform to try and trip up the solo player. If you're the solo player, then whenever you're targeting someone, make sure you start moving the crane the moment their ball lines up with this metallic hole. Not when they're lining up on the left side of the platform, but when they're lining up on the right side of the platform. If you start moving your crane at this exact moment and release it wherever they're coming from, then you have a very high chance of capturing them. If they catch on, then mess around with your timing a bit to see what works. If you're one of the 3 players, then move to the middle of the platform and roll your ball against the rotation of the platform. This will decrease the amount of chances the solo player has to grab you, since you won't be making as many revolutions around the platform. Change up your placement once you get to the solo player though, so you don't easily get caught. Hanging around the shy guys could work too, but I never got much use out of them. Candlelight Fright. One player holds a candle while the other 3 try to extinguish the light with their water guns. The solo player can take 5 sprays before losing. The 3 players will stand still when spraying. If you're the solo player, then your goal is to juke the 3 players as best you can. It may be tempting to stay on the outskirts the entire time, but the team will likely catch on quick and adapt just as quickly. Don't be afraid of running into the middle of the area whenever there's an opening. The best time to do this is when you see an opponent in the middle of spraying, since they're going to be stuck in that position for a quick moment. If you get sprayed, then you'll have invincibility for a short time. Use it to make distance between you and your opponents. If you're one of the 3 players, then predict the solo player's movements and react accordingly. If they're staying on the outskirts of the arena, then run to where they'll go next and spray there. If they're trying to juke your team by going down the middle, then be a savior and predict it. Fish and drips. Fill the tank with enough water for the Cheeps to swim. The solo player hits a set of 5 random buttons in a row, whereas the Team 03 have to work together as they each react to their own individual button. If the solo player messes up a button, then they have to start the same sequence from the beginning. If one of the 3 players messes up a button, then they freeze for a moment before being given another chance to hit the right one. If you're the solo player, then don't get tripped up by the similar looking buttons. Whereas A and B are quite distinct from everything else, the others are the same color, so read each letter carefully. If you're one of the 3 players, then react to your button quickly. The solo player will win this minigame more often than not, so you and the others have gotta be on your game if you want to win. Goal! One player is the goalie. Hopefully it's not Scott Sterling. Protect the goal from the team player's shots. Get 10 goals to win. The solo player can dive to cover a spot away from them. The 3 players can change up their shots to make them go faster and higher. If a shot's charge longer than the animation has to show for it, then it will hit the goal post. If you're the solo player, then don't bother diving. It's a very committal move that'll leave other parts of the goal open. Opt in for moving left and right quickly instead. You'll cover more ground that way. Your default position should be at the middle of the goal, so shots won't get too far from you. If it comes down to blocking 2 shots or 1, then block the 2. Trying to block them all may result in blocking none of them. You could watch your opponent's legs to see where they're about to kick their balls, but I've found more success in simply reacting to the balls when they're shot. If you're on the team of 3, then spread out your shots to make it harder for the solo player to block them all. Throw in some variety between your shots to throw the solo player off. If you notice one of your teammates are holding their charge for too long, then let them know so you can be more efficient as a team. Hide and go boom! The team players can hide in any of 4 cannons. The lone player must fire the cannons to find them. The solo player has 3 tries to knock out the team 03. Multiple players on the team can go into the same cannon. Heck, it's possible that the whole team can be found in the same cannon. Just unlikely. The team of 3 will start by moving to the cannon that they press the button of. This will only be visible for the first couple seconds, because the camera will pan down, allowing them to change their selection as much as they want until time is up. If you're the solo player, then watch and listen closely. One of your opponents may select a cannon and then drop their controller, meaning there's no way that they changed cannons last second. If the camera pans down and you don't hear any footsteps, then that means all of the players committed to the last cannon they were standing by, which makes things way easier for you. If you're stuck choosing between 2 fuses, then try saying out loud which fuse you're about to go for. If this sparks a preemptive negative reaction from your enemies like "aw man" or "no" or anything like that, then you can be pretty sure that fuse is the right one. Inversely, if you say you're going for a certain fuse and you get a preemptive positive reaction from your enemies or no reaction at all, then you can be pretty sure that fuse is the wrong one. This strat has a higher chance of working if the people you're playing with are vocal. If not, then it's all up to chance. If you're one of the 3 players, then keep a hold of your controller and constantly run around to different cannons, whether the camera is up or down. You don't want the solo player to take advantage of sight or sound. If you know the solo player's personality well, then you may be able to trick them by saying you're in a certain cannon when you're not, or by saying the cannon you are in, because you're sure they'll fall for it. Don't fall for the trick I laid out previously. If the solo player says they're going for a fuse, then don't give away if they're right or wrong. Leave it to chance, or egg them on if you feel like it. Hop or pop. One player gets in a spiky ball and tries to pop the balloons of the other 3. If any of the 3 targets survive, all 3 win. If the players with balloons time their jumps just right, they can jump farther. It's possible for the 3 players to jump over the solo player on their 3rd jump, but this should be considered a last resort option because the reward isn't worth the risk. If you're the solo player, then spam the jump button until the minigame is over. This will make it harder for the 3 players to tell where your hitbox is, which in turn makes it harder for them to avoid you. Don't roll at full speed or you'll find it hard to change directions. Instead, take it slow, make it ambiguous which direction you're going, and capitalize off any confusion your opponents are having. If you're one of the 3 players, then make sure your team is spread out. Bouncing together could cause an easy sweep for the solo player, both because you're, well, all together, and also because you may accidentally bounce into one another and get flung every which way. Let your teammates know that they should time their bounces so they can bounce further. Makin Waves. The team players must pound the ground to make waves, while the lone player must try to balance on the shell. If you're the solo player, then don't worry about running off the shell yourself. It's impossible. Watch where your opponents are. If they're all in the same spot, then move towards them so your shell isn't flipped over instantly. If there's 2 on one side and 1 on the other, then favor the side with the 2 people. If you're one of the 3 players, then make sure your ground pounds are in sync with your teammates, no matter where you are. This will cause the shell to bounce up higher and higher, which may confuse the solo player into making a wrong move. A common strategy is lining up with your teammates in the same spot and ground pounding all together. This will work against a solo player that doesn't know how to counter it, but if they do, then switch up your placements to throw them off their guard. Money belts. This is a coin collecting bonus game. Avoid the cookies and sweets on the belt and grab as many coins as possible. If you're the solo player, then prioritize staying on the conveyor belt. If you fall off, then you're giving up multiple coins towards the team of 3, which is a lot worse than not falling and giving them a single coin. Matters change when a coin bag is involved. Get it even if it means you fall in the process. Most of the time, you should be simply avoiding the cookies and sweets as you collect coins. If you do this without falling, then you'll get way more coins than your opponents. If you're one of the 3 players and the solo player knows what they're doing, then that sucks. Maybe throw them off key by saying there's a coin bag when there really isn't. If you see any coins drop down, then either you or your teammate should grab them. Remember that you all share coins. There's no need to trip over yourself getting any when your teammate can do it for you. Tree Stomp. 3 players control robots while the other player runs. The runner must stay alive for 45 seconds to win. Monkeys will throw down banana peels and golden bananas during the match. If the solo player or any of the 3 players touch a banana peel, then they'll slip and get stunned for a short time. The solo player can still get knocked out by a player in the robot who slipped on a banana. If the solo player touches a golden banana, then they'll move much faster, which can both be a blessing and a curse. If the player gets too hyped up on their speed, then they may end up slamming right into their opponent on accident. If you're the solo player, then don't try to take over the world when you go fast. Just watch your opponent's movements and take it slow. If one of the 3 players touches a golden banana, then their speed will increase as well, just not as much as the solo players would. If you're one of the 3 players that attains this speed, then move towards the solo player and react to where they move. You're a much bigger threat when you're going this fast. If you're the solo player, then don't be afraid to weave in between your opponents, especially if they have to turn to get you. It's way easier for them to move forward and backward than left and right. If you're one of the 3 players, then work together with your team to corner the solo player. If you're out of sync, then you're just going to give them free openings to dance around you with. 2v2 minigames. Cheep Cheep Sweep. Catch the Cheep Cheeps in your net. Red Cheep Cheeps are worth 1 point and yellow ones are worth 2 points. It's possible to catch Cheep Cheeps with both the front of your net and the back of it. Moving fast will cause Cheep Cheeps to swim away from you. Moving slow won't have much of an effect on their behavior. So if you see a golden Cheep Cheep close by, then take it easy so you don't scare it off. A great strat for this minigame is to assign 1 player on your team as the chaser and 1 as the netter. The chaser's job is to run towards Cheep Cheeps, preferably golden ones, and get them to flee towards the netter, who's standing still with their net out. This will often fill up their net quick, but keep in mind that one's net can hold up to only 3 Cheep Cheeps. If you reach that limit and still have your net out, then you're wasting your time. Go and empty them out before getting back to it. If the game's about to end and your opponents have just enough to get ahead of your team's amount, then block their goal with your partner so they can't empty their net and get any more points. Cliffhangers. Don't let the snowy winds blow you off the face as you climb. Grab hold when the wind and the rumble starts to pick up. The first gust will never be an avalanche, so make sure your partner's climbing with you as it occurs. If the other team doesn't know this, then that means you have a lead. When ahead, all you have to do is copy what your opponents do and you win. No, really, think about it. Your team is ahead, their team is behind. If you copy what they do, then you'll progress at an equal rate since you're doing the same thing. If they go full speed past a gust, then so will your team. If they fall from an avalanche, then so will your team. This will keep your placements at roughly the same distance, which means you will win before they do. This, of course, doesn't apply if your opponents are straight terrible at this minigame and fall from every avalanche. If that's the case, then play it like normal. You'll only win if you reach the end. This strat also doesn't account for your opponents holding on literal frames before a blizzard comes in, not giving you enough time to copy them, which will result in you falling. This outcome is unlikely though, since they would need both players in their team to get this lucky, which just won't happen unless they're expert CPUs which can react within a few frames. If your team's far ahead and nearing the goal, then hold on during the next gust regardless of what your opponents do, since you're only seconds away from clenching the win. Dungeon duos. Help your teammate to clear all the obstacles in this dank dungeon. Dank dungeon? What, is it full of memes? The minigame will start with players on the team alternating between mashing B to lower a gate and waiting for the gate to lower. When it's time for you to mash, move your character right in front of the lever first. Sometimes players will assume that they're close enough to the lever and start mashing a little bit before they get there. Don't be like them. Repeat the process until you get to the platforms. Make sure you're the one rotating them at the beginning. Mash quick and don't stop. Oftentimes, players will stop so the platform stays still, allowing their teammate to easily jump onto it. While this is kind, it's not optimal. Let your teammate know you're going to keep mashing so they time their jump appropriately. Once they're on, keep mashing until they reach the other side, then quickly jump onto the platform yourself. You don't have to wait until the platform reaches the metal until you can jump to the other side. Feel free to jump a little early to save time. Spin the solo platform without any breaks, just like before, except this time, keep mashing until it makes its way back around to you. You'll notice that when you and your partner are mashing at the same time, it'll spin around faster, which is what you want. Jump on it when it gets close to you and make your way to the warp pipes. Only one warp pipe will lead you to the next area. You and your teammate can narrow down which one is the correct one by remembering which warp pipes are linked to one another. For example, if I jump into a warp pipe and it instantly spits me out of a different one, then neither of those warp pipes are correct, so I should jump into an entirely different one, and so on. If a warp pipe you jump into doesn't spit you out close by, then that's the correct one. Make sure your teammate follows you, or if your teammate's the one that disappeared, you follow them. Repeat this narrowing down process for the next, larger set of warp pipes. By the way, you and the opposing team share a different set of warp pipes, so the correct one for your team may be different from theirs. It's essential that you and your partner are always taking different warp pipes so you save time. Once one of you finds the correct one, move on to the balloon section. Unlike other pumping minigames, going decently fast is what's optimal here. Click your L and R buttons at a quick enough pace that you see your character reach the top and bottom limits of the pump. It doesn't matter if you and your teammate are out of sync, so don't worry about that. Keep pumping your balloon and get out of there. Order up. Toad will order items that you must find in the boxes before the other team. First to 3 points wins. Do your best to remember as many items in front of you as possible, but know your limits. If you can't remember 5 items in a row, then don't try. Stick to a lower number. When remembering items, you don't need to jam the whole name of the item into your head. Instead of corn dog, hamburger, french fries, ice cream, try corn, burger, fries, ice. Corn, burger, fries, ice. It's much easier to recall. They'll soon get packaged up and rotate around. If you're on the left side, they'll rotate counterclockwise. If you're on the right side, they'll rotate clockwise. Move your character towards the items that you're keeping an eye on. If any of the items you memorized match either of the items Toad reveals, then quickly open them. If neither you nor your partner memorized the placement of an item that Toad held up, then quickly open up other boxes. Repeat this process until your inevitable victory. I doubt this would ever happen, but make sure you and your teammate aren't memorizing the same items. To keep it simple, just memorize the ones right in front of your character. Parasailing. This is a coin collecting bonus game. Teams cooperate in the boat and parachute to get all the coins they can. There are 3 speeds the boat driver can go: slow, medium, and fast. To switch speeds, the boat driver simply needs to press the A or B button once. They do not need to hold it down. For example, if you're the boat driver taking it slow and you want to go fast, then press the A button 2 times. Easy enough, right? The parachute sailor's height in the air will vary depending on the boat's speed. Slow equals low, medium equals medium, and fast equals high. The boat driver must pay attention to the heights of the coins so they know how fast they need to be going for their partner to reach him. However, they must also look out for crates in the water, which will slow them down, forcing the parachute sailor to sink lower. If you're the boat driver, then watch for the coins ahead and adjust speed so your teammate has an easy time collecting all the coins. If you see a crate, then prioritize avoiding it instead of getting greedy. If you see a coin way off the beaten path, then ignore it in favor of coins that are in a row. If you're the parachute sailor, then move towards the coins your boat driver leads you to. If they're making mistakes that can be corrected, then give them a friendly nudge in the right direction. Revers-a-Bomb. Press the corresponding buttons to redirect the bombs. Blow the other team up 10 times to win. If you're in front of a bomb that explodes, then you'll get stunned for a little bit, which can lead to your side getting overwhelmed with bombs and losing quickly. Most players will hold their analog stick towards where they want to go, release it, press A, and repeat. However, you don't actually need to release your analog stick for your character to stop in place. You can hold it up or down while mashing A, and your character will stop on their own to press a button and then continue moving automatically. You won't waste any time releasing and moving your analog stick over and over. If your opponents aren't using this method, then you'll quickly overwhelm them, unless your teammate has no clue what they're doing. Right or left. Be the first to pilot the dory boat out of the cave. When going straight, mash the A and B button as quickly as you can. I know the animation for the boats don't properly reflect your button mashing, but trust me, this is an endurance button masher. When you need to make a left turn, mash A. When you need to make a right turn, mash B. The amount of times you press A or B to make a turn should depend on how harsh the turn is. If you need to make a small turn like the one at the beginning, then you only need to press A 1 or 2 times. If you didn't make any big mistakes on your way to the first Bowser statue, then go straight on through. If you did make mistakes like running into a wall hard, then wait until the flames stop before passing. The camera is mean during the rock section up ahead, so don't get thrown off. Keep track of where you're going and avoid bumping into rocks. This section will be easier if you and your teammate are in sync, so call out which direction you want to go so you don't accidentally paddle against each other. The second and third Bowser statues often need to be reacted to in the moment. If flames are already there and are about to stop, then pass straight through. If no flames are there and they're about to start up, then quickly avoid them by going around. If your opponents are far ahead, then don't give up hope. The flames will stun players for a long time, so you still have a chance. Team Treasure Track. Find the question mark blocks that match your team's color. Once you and your partner have found each block, you must meet each other in the maze. The question mark blocks that match your color will always be on the other side of where you spawn. If you know for sure where you're going to spawn, then you can quickly chart out a path in your head from your spawn point to a question mark block. You may be thinking, but Zoomzike, how do I know which corner I'll spawn in before the game shows me? You'll know based on your character's placement on the rules screen. The order goes bottom left, top right, top right. For example, let's say you're in the second position. That's top left. As the minigame's about to start, look at your spawn point and quickly make a path from there to the closest question mark block that matches your team's color, which, as I said before, will always be on the other side of where you spawn. The camera will zoom in and the minigame will start. Follow the path you made in your head, get the question mark block, and meet up with your partner to win. That is, if they manage to find the other question mark block. If they didn't, then look for it together so you can quickly finish the minigame once it's found. If you press X or Y, then you'll display the map, which lets you know where all the players and question mark blocks are, but not what the maze looks like. This can be helpful to both your team and the opposing team. If you need to pull up the map to win, then do so quickly. Having it up for too long will let your opponents capitalize off of it. Not only that, but you can't move your character while the map's up. It's truly a give and take move. The Great Deflate. Do hip drops on the inflated thwomp repeatedly to deflate it. The higher you are when you hip drop, the more you'll deflate the thwomp. If you and your teammate are doing the highest hip drops you can while in sync, then you'll win in no time. That's the main issue though, getting in sync. Oftentimes, players will start out in sync and quickly lose their flow as the minigame goes on. If this starts to happen, then correct it quick, even if it means you waiting a moment for your teammate to finish a hip drop before starting again. Being in sync matters that much. Battle minigames. Bowser's Bigger Blast. Players press the switches one by one. Try not to be the one who sets off the bomb. This minigame functions exactly like Bowser's Big Blast from Mario Party 2, which was also a battle minigame. When I talked about it in Identifying Luck in Mario Party 2, I proved with math that everyone has an equal chance of winning. I'll re-explain my reasoning here by calculating each player's chances of being the first to get blown up. The first player has a 1 out of 5 or a 20% chance of blowing up first. The second player can only blow up first if the first player lives, so we will multiply the first player's chances of living, 4 out of 5, with the second player's chances of blowing up, 1 out of 4. When that fraction is reduced, we get 1 out of 5 or a 20% chance of the second player blowing up first. The third player can only blow up first if the first player and the second player live, so we will multiply the first player's chances of living, 4 out of 5, the second player's chances of living, 3 out of 4, and the third player's chances of blowing up, 1 out of 3. When that fraction is reduced, we get 1 out of 5 or a 20% chance of the third player blowing up first. The fourth player can only blow up first if the first player, the second player, and the third player live, So we will multiply the first player's chances of living, 4 out of 5, the second player's chances of living, 3 out of 4, the third player's chances of living, 2 out of 3, and the fourth player's chances of blowing up, 1 out of 2. When that fraction is reduced, we get 1 out of 5, or a 20% chance of the fourth player blowing up first. The remaining 20% is the probability that all 4 players do not get blown up, in which case the switch is reset and the minigame begins anew. As I said before, every player has the same probability of winning regardless of what position they're in. This is true for the beginning of the minigame, and it's true for the end. Everything balances out perfectly. Pick whichever switch you want and hope the game treats you nice. Butterfly Blitz. Catch the butterflies fluttering about. Make sure to catch the most. Butterflies of different colors have different point values. Yellow is 1 point, red is 2, and blue is 3. I admit, the net's hitboxes can be a little janky, but in all fairness, I often see players get way too close to the butterflies they want to catch. It's better to stand further back when swinging so your net will actually touch the butterflies you want. The sideways swing should be your go-to for most butterflies. The only times you should be using the overhead swing is when the butterflies you want are too high up for the sideways one to get them. Focusing on blue butterflies only is a quick way to lose the minigame. Yeah, if you can get one easily, then go for it, but don't waste too much time chasing one down. You may be ignoring easy catches right in front of you. Red butterflies are only 1 point lower in value than blue ones, so if you see a few clumped up together, then that's way more worthwhile. You don't have to wait for the butterflies to enter the arena for you to catch them, by the way. Your net can reach them from inside the fence. You also have to keep in mind that you're not trying to reach a certain amount of points in this minigame, you're simply trying to get more than others. So going towards where the other players are and stealing some high value butterflies from them is an optimal strategy. Chain Chomp Fever. Watch out for Chain Chomp and the lava cracks. Oh, and don't fall off the side either. The Chain Chomp will spin, bark at the player, and charge towards them in a straight line. If it hits a wall, then it'll get stunned for a short time before repeating the process. If it doesn't hit a wall, then it'll immediately repeat the process. Players must also avoid getting burned by flames that burst from the ground. They can also fall off the edge. Watch where the Chain Chomp is headed each time it barks, and avoid its charge while also avoiding flames. If it's charging to a space without a wall, then prepare for it to charge immediately after. It's possible, especially near the end when lots of walls are broken, for the Chain Chomp to keep on charging over and over. It's terrifying. If you're good at avoiding the Chain Chomp, then you can make the minigame harder for other players by luring your dog into a space without a wall. Simply stand where the open space is and hope your pal targets you. This is chaotic evil at its best. Paths of Peril. Walk the narrow path without falling to reach the goal. I love minigames like these. You start by coming across a fork in the road. One path leads left and one path leads right. One of these two paths is long and pointed, whereas the other is short and curvy, but you have no way of knowing which is which, so you've got to guess between the two and hope you get the short, curvy path. Same deal with the second fork in the road. Two paths to choose from, one is long and pointed and the other is short and curvy, with no way to know which is which. Luck-based, right? Wrong! There is a way to know which path is the short, curvy one. For the first fork in the road, always start by taking the left path, but watch this tree while you do. If you see a mountain right next to it, then immediately switch to the other path. See, the long pointed path sticks out a bit, which is easy to tell when we use this tree as a reference. However, there's another shape this pointed path can take, but no worries, we'll prepare for that one too. If you see a mountain above the tree, then you also want to switch to the other path. If you don't see a mountain right next to the tree or way above it, then the left path you're taking is clear and you're good to go. But Zoomzyke, let's say I notice these tells a little late. Do I still make my way back to the shorter one or bite the bullet and take the longer one? In most cases, going back and taking the shorter one is optimal, even if you notice these tells later than you had hoped. The only time I'd commit to the bad path is if you're already making your way up. Treat the second fork in the road no different than the first. Do what we talked about. Rumble fishing. Be the first player to reel in the Cheep. Whoever reels it in the fastest wins. If Rumble's turned on, then press the A button as soon as you feel it. If Rumble's turned off, then glue your eyes to the top of your character. The moment you see the exclamation marks pop up, press A. There's not much strategy here besides reaction time, but you could always mess with your opponents by shouting something to throw off their timing. Trace race. Trace the colored line on the ground. Whoever stays closest to the original line wins. The only speeds are stop and go, which sucks, but we'll adapt. Most players will be constantly moving as they trace their line, but this isn't a race. It's a battle for accuracy. If there's an awkward curve, then take a moment to make sure you get it right by stopping and going over and over. On the other hand, don't take it too slow, or you'll get forced along by the left side of the screen. There's also a circle which requires you to go backwards at one point, so make sure you've got room to do so. Bowser minigames. Balloon of Doom. Players take turns pumping Bowser's balloon. The higher a player jumps, the more air gets pumped into the balloon. If your jump is the one that triggers the balloon to pop, or you don't pump the balloon at all, you lose. You want the strat? I'll give you the strat. First off, I don't care how much the balloon is pumped at the beginning, cause it's this Koopa kid right here that'll save your butt. He reveals how close the balloon is to popping. He'll take a step back after some pumps and then another after some more, but what we really care about is his placement behind the pillar when he's cowering, and his placement right before he goes to the pillar, which is on the edge of Bowser's platform. If a player's pumped the balloon while the Koopa kid is on the edge and it's your turn next, then give that balloon the biggest pump you can. It will, without a doubt, send Koopa kid to the pillar, indicating that the balloon is at its limit. Now you can rest easy knowing that there's no way for you to lose. If you're the first player to pump the balloon while the Koopa kid is on the edge, then the amount you should pump is dependent upon how much the player before you pumped. Did they do a medium size or large size pump? If so, then give it your biggest pump. Did they do a small size pump? Then pump as small as you can. If you're caught pumping the balloon while the Koopa kid's cowering behind the pillar, then pump as small as you feasibly can. This can be done by jumping, waiting for your character to fall, and ground pounding mere inches above the button. You could always look at the balloon itself to gauge when it's close to popping, but I've found the Koopa kid to be an easier measure of what to do. Darts of Doom. Throw 3 darts at once and try to get a lot of points. The board will be spinning as you make your attempt. The 3 cursors show where the darts will hit. The sum of the 3 areas your darts hit is your total score. The player with the least points loses. If you get a bullseye, you lose. You could try and hit the high scoring numbers, but honestly, human players aren't that good at avoiding the bullseye. So as long as you avoid it, you should be in the clear. Fruits of Doom. Bowser will say which fruits he wants to eat. You must find the right fruit and bring it to him. If you bring a fruit Bowser didn't ask for or more than the number he asked for, you lose. His scrolling text for what fruits he wants will start out slow and then suddenly speed up, giving you little to no time to memorize the latter half of what he was saying. Lucky enough though, every possible fruit he could say has a different starting letter. Strawberry, melon, apple, orange, grape, cherry, banana, pineapple. So when his text speeds up, scan for capital letters and you'll know which fruit it was. Even if you only get 1 or 2 of the fruits near the end, that's better than nothing. Most players will only memorize the beginning fruits and possibly the last one, so you want everything you can get. You can mess with opponents all you want by making them doubt their selection. This next set of minigames are only played when you confront Bowser while you're Mega on the Bowser's Gnarly party board. Bowser Wrestling. Press the A button when Koopa Kid says stomp him to shove, then press the L button and R button alternatively to push your opponent out. Doing so decreases the player's stamina, represented by 5 golden mushrooms above the player. Actual golden mushrooms may also fall from the sky, giving the character who eats one invincibility and non-decreasing stamina for a short time. Press A the instant you see the words stomp 'em appear on the screen. If you press it quicker than your opponent, then you'll automatically push them to their white line. We call this an advantage. Press the L and R triggers quickly, but not so quick that your stamina drains instantly. If this isn't enough to beat him out, then continue stalemating them until a golden shroom falls from the sky. If it falls onto you, then great, spam L and R for the win. But if it falls behind you, then let your opponent hit you back so you can get it to turn the tides of the battle. Panels of Doom. First you must pick a number, then you and your opponent each roll a dice block. The place matching the number on the dice will crumble and fall away. If you roll the dice and get your opponent's face, then you win instantly. I'm sorry to say that the last minigame here we're covering is entirely luck-based. You roll these dice blocks like a normal one, so play it out and hope for the best. While not my cup of tea, Mario Party 4 still has the charm of the series. It introduced team battles, which allow you to team up with a partner to try and win the game together, an option I wish was in previous entries. Bowser minigames had their start here, bringing an extra flair to the Koopa King whenever he appears. Oh, and let's not forget the custom minigame pack feature, which hasn't returned to this day. Here, you can build your own custom set of minigames to be played in a variety of modes, including party mode. So if you hate yourself and want to only play button mashing minigames, then you can do that by turning on Slime Time, Domination, Take a Breather, and Manta Rings. It's all up to you. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of this title. I think I've made that much clear. But for what it's worth, I think Mario Party 4 is a fine entry into this series that I hold dear. Thanks for watching. See you next time when we cover Mario Party 5.